The Padres of the West, the Reds of the Central, two coziest divisions in baseball. 4.5 games, the biggest deficit there. And it's amazing because Cincinnati is 9 games under 500, and they gain a half game on Houston, who loses this afternoon. I'm Bob Carpenter. Welcome to San Diego, where they're moaning about this 1-7 homestand right now. But really, if you talk to Padre fans back in spring training and ask them, would you like to have a 2.5 game lead over the Dodgers on June 12th? They would have said, sure, we'll take it. But lately, it's been a different story. A bad homestand, best road record in all of baseball for Bruce Bochy's Padres, but they have really struggled the last week and a half. And Andy Van Slyke, you've been through a few slumps with the team during your career. Is this something a ball club naturally goes through over the long season?
Well, I think you have to, Bob. I think every club, unless you're like the Cleveland Indians, who just absolutely swept through their division last year, needs a time where it's a real litmus test for them, where they have a character-building time. And for the San Diego Padres, with the injuries they have now, this is the time to find out what they're really made of.
Yeah, first it was the Wally Joyner injury, then their defense went last week against St. Louis, and now they're really struggling. Now, Cincinnati has the Marge Schott situation resolved, evidently. They're worrying about baseball. They played pretty well lately. They've had some injuries of their own, like Reggie Sanders. Eric Davis is back. And what a crazy first 3 months for Ray Knight.
Well, it has been absolutely crazy. He's had injuries. He's had 50 different lineups so far this season. But, you know, getting back to the March thing, these players aren't really worried about that. This is a team that really wants to get focused on what is at hand, and that's getting to play better baseball. And I think they're going to start doing that. They're 6-8 so far in this road trip, so good signs for the Reds.
Well, we've got veterans for Cincinnati like Eric Davis, Chris Sabo, and Joe Oliver back. Youngsters like Chad Mottola now become very important. He homered here last night, and he's a guy with a lot of pop in that young bat. So, it's the Reds and the Padres coming up tonight from San Diego. The Padres looking to salvage one at the tail end of what's been a very, very difficult homestand. San Diego Jack Murphy Stadium, home of the Padres. They're 500 at home this year. And we welcome those of you who've been watching the Marlins and the Expos on ESPN. Montreal coming up with the 8-0 shutout tonight. And here in Cincinnati and San Diego, it's Bob Carpenter with Andy Van Slyke. And the Cincinnati Reds, number 11 in the league, batting at only .247. Thomas Howard, Willie Green, and Hal Morris. Where's Barry Larkin? He's got a sore neck. He's not in there tonight. Eric Davis doing a great job at the cleanup spot. Eddie Taubensee and Brett Boone. Chad Mottola, the young slugger. Jeff Branson and John Smiley. On the mound for San Diego tonight, 26-year-old Sean Bergman toiled for the Tigers for 3 years. And now here he is in the National League.
Yeah, Sean Bergman was over Detroit. And when Sparky Anderson was talking about Sean Bergman, he really liked the fact that he wanted to take the ball. Even though he had a lot of trouble over at Detroit, the fact is when the ball gets thrown to the plate, he wants it back right away and he wants to throw it again. That's just a characteristic that he really likes. And another thing that we'll see tonight is he holds runners very well, and that'll help Johnson out tonight, trying to get potential base stealers.
Padres' defense has been very interesting and porous lately. Ricky Henderson shuffling over to center field tonight because Finley's on the bench.
Yeah, Finley is on the bench because John Smiley, left-hander pitching for Cincinnati, hasn't had a lot of success against him. So Ricky Henderson has played center field before, Bob, but he hasn't played there lately, and it's going to be interesting to see how he handles it tonight.
Ricky is even a more interesting story at the plate. Finley is their best defensive outfielder, former Gold Glove winner. It's amazing what has happened to this ball club defensively. They've made 49 errors in 64 ball games. Not that bad. They've made 12 of those errors in only 6 games against the St. Louis ball club that's won 4 of 6 from them on this field. First pitch of the game is a fastball at the knees to Thomas Howard.
Yeah, Bergman, he's going to feature tonight. He's got a little sinking fastball, 88 to 90 miles an hour, a curveball, but his real out pitch tonight is going to be that changeup, and he really needs to have command of that pitch tonight, Bob, and that's what we're going to have to look for tonight. If he has that, it's going to be a tough assignment for Cincinnati.
His ERA is over 5 runs a game. Thomas Howard's batting mark down in the 220s. Fastball is over but low.
Yeah, and he's going to need that call tonight. If he can get that pitch up a couple more inches, I'm sure Eddie Montague's going to expand that strike zone for him and start giving it to him. But he needs to have that pitch right there tonight to set up his other pitches.
Low and away, 3-1. Bergman has walked only 19 men this year while striking out 52 in 66 innings. And he misses down and in. Having trouble spotting that sinking fastball. And the leadoff man is aboard for the Reds. Continuing a trend, maybe, of first-inning struggles for this right-hander.
Third baseman, number 12.
Almost a run per inning pitch when you put his first innings together this year from his 12 previous starts.
Yeah, and he knows that. I mean, he understands how important it is to get his club into the batter's box in the first inning with no runs on the board. But this is something that can be obviously a psychological problem for him. You start giving up runs in the first inning, you start believing it's going to happen every time. And right now, he's really not helping himself out. He walks the leadoff hitter, and now he's behind with Green. And so this is not the way he wanted to start tonight.
Yeah, against a guy hitting .227 who walks, and now he goes ball one on a .216 batter, Willie Green. And Barry Larkin not in the lineup tonight. The Reds really have some guys struggling. Green is 8 for his last 45. You go further on down, Brett Boone is 5 for 42. Jeff Branson is 6 for 53. There's Barry with Eric Davis.
Seems to be happy he's got the day off.
Base hit right field. Thomas Howard will make the turn and stop as Tony Gwynn throws the ball in behind him. And the first two Reds are on base here.
And this is a perfect situation for Green. Sinker ball pitcher, pull header, has the big hole. He took advantage of it. And you can see here, this is a sinker that's pretty much down the middle of the plate, and it's up. And this is kind of bad location. And Green, being a pull hitter, he picks the right spot to hit the ball.
And a good hitter coming up now, Hal Morris. Came into the ball game late last night in a defensive posture, did not have an at-bat, so his 8-game hitting streak is still alive. And Bergman again having trouble getting ahead. That's the third consecutive batter he's been behind, and Brian Johnson will pay him a visit.
Well, it might not be a bad time, Bob, to try something different. Throw a curveball, maybe throw a changeup. So far tonight, he hasn't thrown anything but that sinking fastball, so he might want to have to try something else to get some other feel going.
Sean Bergman has felt a lot more comfortable away from this ballpark than he has pitching in this park for the Padres this year. Now Morris got a pretty good pitch to work with and sliced it back to the screen. The count evens at 1 ball, 1 strike. 0-5 here, an earned run average of over 6 runs a game.
So much for sleeping in your own bed. I mean, I always like the fact that when I went home, I was always a better hitter, but it always doesn't work that way. And maybe he just hasn't found a comfortable bed yet here in San Diego.
Padres have been sort of uncomfortable at home lately.
Yeah, they really have. I mean, a 1-7 start. This is not the Padre team that I saw early in the year.
They were 17-11 at home before this homestand. Now they're 18-18. Outstanding road record for Bruce Bochy's Padres at 18-10. Cleveland has 20 wins, but the Tribe has lost 13 times away from Jacobs Field. 2 balls and a strike to Hal Morris with Eric Davis on deck. And the Reds looking for a big first inning here. Morris going to the left side, fouls it out of play, and things even up at 2-2. The Reds have beaten the Padres 4 of the first 5 they've played this year, including the first 2 here.
What do you think Eric Davis was doing last June 12th?
Maybe a little yard work.
Maybe. At this point, I mean, he was probably mowing his lawn and probably had no idea that he would have been the most consistent player for the Cincinnati Reds this season, and really the surprise of baseball, I think, so far this year.
Pretty good numbers. Looking for 40 RBIs here tonight. Hal Morris has 24. And during his 8-game hitting streak, Hal is 13 for 29. So over the last week or so, he's been a .448 batter for Ray Knight. 2-2 pitch. It's a breaking ball. It's a double play ball. Reed to Cedeno. They turn the 4-6-3. Over to third with 2 outs, Thomas Howard. And that might have been just what Sean Bergman needed to avoid another disastrous first inning.
Well, it's the pitcher's best friend, Bob. And, I mean, the fact is he tries to pull a sinker away, and when you try to do that, you're going to make a living making out to second base. And if you do it too often, you'll end up upstairs like me.
I thought it was your back injury that
No, it's too many 4-3s that will get you out of the game. But Hal's a good hitter, and he just made a mistake. He tried to hit a sinking ball away from him, and that's what happened.
Here's Eric Davis. Interesting matchup here because Eric Davis has always been susceptible to the high fastball, holds his hands down low. So, Andy, would you then surmise that a sinker ball pitcher would be more to his liking?
Yeah, this is a good situation for Eric. It's better than facing a guy like, I don't know, Alan Ashby, who throws a hard fastball up, or Trevor Hoffman, who comes out of the bullpen throwing 90 miles an hour up. So this is a good matchup for Eric Davis. And I'm sure that when they went over their meetings with the hitters of the Cincinnati Reds, this is something that they talked about before the game started.
Well, Eric Davis doing something 3 Cincinnati Reds have done before, missing an entire season, then coming back and playing well. Bobby Tolan in '71, an Achilles, hit .283 the following year. Of course, Ron Gant, great comeback after his biking accident. Came back and hit 29 homers the following year for the Reds in '95. And then on the pitcher side, Gary Nolan missed all of '74. Next year, he came back and went 15-9. So it's been done before. And Eric Davis has been the shining star of the middle of this lineup. 3-0 pitch. He's pumping, and that's a foul ball down to Caminiti. Jerry Crawford down there behind the bag. Nothing much will get by a former Gold Glover playing third base for the Padres in Caminiti. This man is a human highlight reel when it comes to defense.
Well, he picked up his first Gold Glove last year, and it's pretty amazing the fact that he made the most errors he's ever made at third base. As a matter of fact, he made 27 errors. That was the most for any third baseman in the big leagues last year. Yet he was so spectacular. I think a lot of coaches and managers who do vote for the Gold Glove overlook those 27 errors.
Eric Davis walks. Second pass of the inning issued by Sean Bergman. Another point on Caminiti during the second half of 1995. He was unbelievable with the glove after committing most of those errors early. 24 before the All-Star break. And then he only made 6 the rest of the way. So,
I asked him what the reason was, and he said, well, he really felt like he wasn't in good shape. He really hit the at least baseball playing shape or game shape. And he just felt that as the season went on, he became more flexible, a little bit lighter. He really hit the weight room in the offseason last year. And another factor was Scott Livingstone, who moved to first base in the second half of the year and really maybe saved him 8 to 10 errors just by the fact that he threw the ball in the dirt, and Livingstone was able to get the ball out of the dirt and not have those errors attributed to him.
Dan Worthen, Padre pitching coach, as Eddie Taubensee becomes another batter that Bergman falls behind. This does not look like a friendly visit, Andy. This looks more like a lecture to a young pitcher who may not have been ready mentally here in the first inning.
Well, sometimes that's what it is. Sometimes you're not mentally ready to pitch, or sometimes it just takes you 1 or 2 innings to get comfortable. And I'm sure he did give him a little scolding. And also, you see there, he gave him a little pat on the butt and said, let's go. We certainly need you to not pitch like this the rest of the night.
Eddie Taubensee with runners at the corners. The Reds still have not scored in this inning. Eric Davis is a running threat. He has most of his speed back. He's stolen 7 in 12 attempts, and there's a pretty good stick right there in Eddie Taubensee. He is not the defensive peer of Joe Oliver, but right now Ray Knight cannot afford to leave Taubensee out of the lineup, especially against a right-handed pitcher.
No, he can't. He was so hot early, and he feels that if he gets him enough at-bats, he'll get back in that groove. And a lot like the San Diego Padres situation. Now, you got Johnson in there tonight instead of Osmus for his bat also. So you have two really teams that are struggling to score runs. And tonight we have offensive catchers playing the game and not defensive catchers.
There's Joe Oliver, very adept at handling the Reds pitching staff. 1-1 to Taubensee. He's hit 4 home runs with 20 batted in. Johnson sets up away. That's where the fastball misses. Ball 2.
It just seems like that sinker that we talked about, it's just a little bit flat right now. And I don't know if he's trying to overthrow or if he's not getting his arm in the right slot, but right now we don't see any kind of sink from Bergman so far tonight. And maybe when he gets a little tired and his arm drops a little bit, we'll see that ball sink a little bit more.
2-1 pitch. Davis holding. Fly ball left field line. Newfield over to get it. Fair ball, and that's the third out of the inning. The Reds get 3 runners. They lose 1 on the double play, and they strand a couple. Now the battery getting together. Happy they got out of that first inning. Reds stranding a couple after getting 2 walks and the base hit. The Padres are tied for 5th in the league at 267. Last in homers, Ricky Henderson, Jody Reed, Tony Gwynn, Caminiti, Sinfranco in place of Joyner, and young Mark Newfield in left, Johnson, Cedeno, and the pitcher Bergman. Against the veteran left-hander of the Reds, 31-year-old John Smiley, 107 career victories.
Yeah, John Smiley, who started his career in Pittsburgh, started in the bullpen, became a starting pitcher, went over to Minnesota, found himself here in Cincinnati, and had a great outing his last start in Los Angeles. So I'm sure it's something he's going to want to repeat here tonight.
Threw his changeup tremendously well against the Dodgers. 22 of them in the game. 20 of them were strikes. 7 innings, 5 hits, no earned runs. And not a bad strikeout to walk ratio.
No, and he didn't give up. The important thing is he didn't give up any hits with those changeups, and that's going to be his key tonight.
Fastball upstairs to Ricky Henderson. This is one of the worst batting averages you'll ever see, coupled with a great on-base average. Look at that, 221 and 418. That 418 is 6th best in the National League. He leads the league in walks with 57. And he's walked in 10 consecutive ball games. 1 walk, by the way, more than Jeff Bagwell, barring what Bagwell did today as the Astros were beat out to short. And Jeff Branson, who's the most versatile Cincinnati infielder, throws him out, stepping in at short for Barry Larkin tonight.
And there's Barry Larkin, the night off, we said, with the bad neck, and Branson taking his spot at the shortstop position.
When Larkin is healthy, he and Boone may be the best up the middle in the league. Eric Davis out there patrolling center and playing as aggressively as he used to.
Yeah, I mean, he hurt his chest diving for a ball, so he is playing aggressively, and he's really, I mean, it looks like Eric Davis, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, just before he started getting hurt, he said he really feels physically pretty good, and we're going to see about as good as Eric Davis at this point as we've ever seen in the last 3 or 4 years.
Jody Reed often bats 2nd for the Padres. Often he bats 8th. Over the last 2 seasons here, he's been one of the toughest in the league to strike out. He's normally in the top 4 or 5. Of course, we all know who's the toughest. That's the man that tonight bats behind him.
Yeah, so that would help him out. He really likes the 2nd position. Obviously, I think anybody would like that garden spot ahead of Tony Gwynn.
Little bouncer to the right side for Brett Boone. Each of the middle infielders gets a touch early. And a couple of ground balls thrown by Smiley. And Tony Gwynn coming up. The only game the Padres have won on this homestand was last Wednesday against the Cardinals. Tony Gwynn had not homered all year. And with a couple of men on in the bottom of the 9th, Tony took Tony Foss's deep, drove in 3, and the Padres beat the Cardinals 6-4. At the time, the Pods thought that might be the big hit and the win to really get them going, but it was not to be.
No, and 1 game and 1 hit really doesn't turn around a situation like the San Diego Padres are in right now, and it's going to take a couple series before they really believe that they're out of this funk that they're in.
Jerry Crawford skipping over into foul territory and calling the ball foul down there at third base. Great mobility shown there by the third base umpire. Everybody's letting him hear about it.
He's just happy he didn't get hit.
Tony Gwynn does hit a lot of people. 2,470 base hits. And they will get him this time on a fly ball to Eric Davis. An easy 1-2-3 for John Smiley with a couple of ground balls and an easy fly ball. So Bergman was in trouble. Smiley makes it look easy.
Gary Miller updating you from the Mariners-Twins game in the Metrodome. Mike Jackson on him relay for the 4-2 lead. And a wild bounce off the bag in the Greg Myers hit will score Paul Molitor. Suddenly it's a 1-run game going to the 9th at 4-3 for Ken Griffey Jr., who has 10 putouts. too shy of the all-time record for a center fielder in the American League. Also puts one out of the park. Home run number 22. It's 5-3 in the ninth. Back to Bob and Andy.
Hey, Gary, you almost had us fooled. I thought you were going to show a Minnesota-Seattle highlight without a home run. You proved us wrong. What a crazy series that has been up there the last couple of days. Red Boone leads off here in San Diego for the Reds. And a fastball is up high for ball one. Red is slumping. Boone is slumping. 5 for 42 and 16 for his last 80.
Yeah, and they really do need this guy to start swinging the bat because he was a big part of their success last year. He just did everything right for him defensively and offensively, and he's coming off that injury. So this is really the first time he's going to be able to feel comfortable, feel like he's getting into the part of the season where he can start contributing.
Had some elbow chips on the right side, scoped and removed on the 3rd of April, which was 2 days after the start of the regular season. He didn't quite make it back as quickly as he thought he would, but I remember Ray Knight telling us in April, there's no way that Boone will be back when he says he will, because he's a competitive guy who hates to be out of the lineup. 2 balls, 2 strikes now. But, of course, that was the same kind of player Ray Knight was, and Ray, while being realistic, did express admiration for the type of approach Brett Boone has. High chopper up the middle, over to get it, Cedeno. He makes the spectacular play. It's the routine ones he has problems with, and he puts away Boone for the first out.
It is a nice play up the middle, Bob. And the thing about Cedeno is when he has time, he starts thinking. He thinks that he has to make the perfect throw. It makes it look like he's got to do everything fundamentally right. It's when he's athletic is when he makes these great plays and ends up making the plays that makes him look spectacular. Again, you can see here he throws off balance. He shows great arm strength. He actually flipping the ball underneath, and that's what makes him spectacular. But they don't need that spectacular from him. They need that routine play up the middle from him.
Here's Chad Mottola. Big towering young man. Great strength. 6'3", 220. Born in Augusta.
Okay.
And he's done very well since his recall from AAA. That one rattles the mask of Ed Montague. Chad Mottola is 11 for his last 31. And he's hanging in there, not overmatched right now, with a batting mark of .295. Reds have hit 57 home runs this year, 10th in the league. They'd be a lot higher had Reggie Sanders been healthy first 2 months of the season. Hanging breaking ball way up and in.
You know, Bob, in the opening, we talked about this kid right here, and sometimes when your team is struggling and you have veterans in the lineup like Cincinnati does, it takes some young blood to get the team going, and this might be the best thing to happen to Cincinnati. Obviously, this is something that's yet to be seen, but when you have veterans like to get involved in young guys, and they like to try to teach them, and there's some veterans there, Reggie Sanders and Joel Youngblood, the coach for the Cincinnati Reds, and you like to contribute not only on the field but off the field, and sometimes that's a good combination. And this kid, who's got just absolutely awesome power, might end up being the big surprise for Cincinnati the rest of the year in.
2 balls, 2 strikes. And he lays off the breaking ball down in the dirt. That fills the count.
I mean, every park he goes to, it's new for him. You know, every time he goes to New York, he's never probably been to New York City. He has to jump in a cab or take the 7 train out to the Queen. So these veterans like to take these young guys and take them under the wing, but they also like the excitement that they bring when they come to the ballpark every day.
It's interesting that you might think, well, Cincinnati is a frugal ball club that needs to bring up young players, but for the perceived frugality of Marge Schott and the Reds, they do have a very large payroll. A lot of money tied up in very veteran players.
Yeah, they do. John Smiley and Sanders, who just signed that big contract in the offseason, so they're over the 40 million mark, so they're not a frugal team.
Costs a lot to keep Larkin year after year. And an easy second out. Jody Reed looking up into the twilight. Now 3 in a row retired by Sean Bergman, and he really needed an inning like this. In the first inning, Sean threw 21 pitches. 13 of them were out of the strike zone. So here at Jack Murphy Stadium, scoreless in the top of the second. The Reds have the game's only base hit. That was Willie Green in the first. He was wiped out on a 4-6-3 double play. Jeff Branson will be the batter. And you notice out in the upper deck in the outfield, they have tarped off the seats, like many clubs have, to give the ballpark a more intimate feel. This one gets out to the deeper part of the ballpark from Branson, and it will reach over the wall about 385 feet away, and Branson has his 4th homer of the year.
Boy, that was intimate to him. That's exactly what he wanted. A fastball right down the middle, didn't sink, and Branson wastes no time and jumps all over the pitch.
He came into that at-bat 6 for his last 53.
And a lot of times you can just tell by sound what the ball's going to do, and this pitch had a nice sound to it. It was crisp, it was off the bat, and that's just bad location. And it ended up going over seats, which was a great location for Branson.
That's not bad when your number 8 man gets on so the pitcher can bat. Ricky Henderson will catch the ball from John Smiley, who's a 148 career hitter. Well, Branson, the most versatile Red, this time he goes deep. Middle of the second, it's 1-0 Cincinnati.
On update from Cleveland, we're about to show you something that has never happened. An A's win in the Jake. They were 0 for 9. Herbert Perry with 2 outs in the ninth will fly out to Jose Herrera. Throw your baseball to the sky. The A's behind 2 McGuire home runs, win it 9-6 in Cleveland. Back to the Murph.
Well, how about that? Oakland broke a 3-game losing streak with that win. How about that AL Central, Andy? The White Sox have been outstanding lately, really stalking that Cleveland ball club.
Well, no one would have thought it at this point in the season. And from here on in, for that division, it's really going to come down to pitching, because you really have 2 teams that offensively are going to dominate the other teams when they face them.
And, of course, the White Sox, as Gary told you earlier, 3-2 losers to Boston, so they stay a game back tonight in the AL Central. Ken Caminiti, a .314 batter. He's been murdered from the right side, hitting .348 right-handed. And he takes a breaking ball off the end of the bat, short left center. Eric Davis broke back, so Thomas Howard comes across to make the play.
And that's a natural reaction for a center fielder break back. He takes a big swing. A big guy like Caminiti, who hit 26 home runs last year for San Diego. Your natural inclination is to break back when the ball's off the end of the bat. It's a big swing, but it's not something that's uncommon.
Andy, is it even tougher to get the good break at this time of the night when it's twilight, not quite dark, the lights are blazing, and you're trying to make your way out in center field to see where the ball's going to come down?
Well, not necessarily with that ball. But the fact that he took the big swing is really what fools you in. A lot of times when a guy takes that big swing, the ball actually does go over your head and you break in. But Eric Davis, I think, did the right thing. He protected deep and then still had time to catch that ball. So I like the fact that he broke back first. And, I mean, the one mistake you don't want to make as an outfielder is break in and have the ball go over your head.
Arky Sinfraco doing a pretty good job with the bat now since Wally Joyner went down. Obviously, he's not the experienced major league hitter that Wally is, but Sinfraco equaled a career high last night, extending his hitting streak to 7 ball games. He's 12 for his last 30 with 4 runs batted in, 4 doubles. And of course the Padres will miss Wally Joyner's defense as well. One of the smoothest fielding left-handed first baseman in the game. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Sinfraco at .340 starting the night.
Yeah, and that first base position, Bob, I think is a defensive position that's often overlooked how important it is. When Wally Joyner came over here, these guys in the infield didn't realize just how good he was over there, catching balls out there, catching everything that was coming his way. So they're going to miss Wally Joyner's glove.
High heat from Smiley, striking out Sinfraco. John Smiley has retired the first 5. First 2 on grounders, couple of fly balls, and now this strikeout.
Well, this is good location. The ball's up, Bob, and this is a pitch, I think, that needs to come back into the big league, especially with 2 strikes. Maybe not when you're behind in the count, but that pitch right there is a good location, because there's only really one thing you're going to do right there is that pop the ball up or strike out.
Here's Newfield, big curveball. John Smiley has a big hook, even to a right-hander. Tough enough if you're a left-hander trying to hang in on that one, but the righty couldn't make contact either. This is a young guy with a lot of power, learning to hit at the major league level.
And really hits the ball everywhere, Bob. That's what's going to make him tough to defend. And, when you got Tony Gwynn hanging around the batting cage every day, you learn an awful lot about hitting. This kid right here. He can hit the ball to right field, left field, and center field and with authority. So it's a big promising player for the San Diego Padres.
John Smiley's got that four-seam fastball zipping tonight. And he's ahead of Newfield. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Trying to retire his 6th consecutive batter. Outside target. Spots the fastball out there, and Newfield has to reach just to foul it off.
And I think John's done himself a favor tonight. He has established his fastball early, and that's very important for John. And it's important because it's going to make his curveball and his changeup that much more effective.
1-2 pitch.
A little 3/4 right there.
Yeah, dropped down a little bit, didn't
he did, and that's something you don't see too often from John Smiley.
He must be feeling good out there. He's trying new things in the 2nd inning.
Thomas Edison.
Here's the 2-2. Well, he invents another 1-2-3 inning, his 2nd strikeout. And because Jeff Branson homered in the top of this inning, the Padres are now behind for the 9th consecutive time on this 1-7 homestand.
ESPN's Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by John Deere, makers of quality lawn and grounds care equipment. Nothing runs like a Deere.
Boy, it sure is tough to handle the weather in Mission Valley in San Diego. Beautiful shots tonight from our blockbuster video blip. It's crew for tonight. Captain Steve Kolinsky from Naperville, Illinois. I couldn't catch that thing. It can go 70 miles an hour. He's slowed it down a little bit for our gorgeous shots of Jack Murphy Stadium tonight. Top of the order, top of the 3rd, and ball 1 to Thomas Howard, who walked and was stranded first time up. Reds have the game's only 2 hits. They lead 1-0 on the Jeff Branson solo shot last inning. And Howard goes the other way with a little squirter to left field. That'll be a pretty good little pitching wedge tomorrow if they can get the U.S. Open going. Lots of coverage on ESPN starting tomorrow, weather permitting, from Oakland Hills. And Thomas Howard threw a little wedge out there for his base hit.
Yeah, but that ball would have plugged.
Yeah, a lot more rain there than here in San Diego. Here's Willie Green. He got a base hit to right field first time up. Thomas Howard 0 for 4 stealing bases this year.
Well, it's going to be tough for him to steal tonight against Bergman and against Johnson. Bergman's quick to first and also quick to home, so it's going to be a tough assignment to try to get any stolen bases tonight against this combination.
Willie Green came into this game at 216. A lot of hitting room, as Andy noted, first time this time, because for the 2nd consecutive time he bats with first base occupied.
And Green's a pull hitter. He hits everything to the right side of the field, and this is again another good situation for him. And you really don't have to put a hit and run on here. You just have to let Green swing the bat and shoot for that hole. And it's a double play situation. Reed in that position is really giving away too much. He may have to slide a little bit closer to the right field line to try to get that hole down a little bit.
Willie Green did some heavy hitting for the Reds last year. Didn't hit for much, average at 243 at Indianapolis, but at AAA, 19 home runs and 45 batted in. Then he had 19 bats over 8 games with the big club. So they know he's got some power. He just hasn't put the ball in play quite enough. Big curveball from Bergman. That was a right-handed version of John Smiley's hook.
Yeah, and this is the thing he's going to have to get over. There's 2 things to pay attention to tonight: his sidestepping when he does have runners on, and when the fact that when he does sidestep, he doesn't lose his stuff. And if he can do those 2 things, he's going to keep his team in the game tonight. Now that one got away, and that's what I'm talking about. The fact that he does sidestep because he wants to get quicker to home, it's very important for him to make sure he doesn't lose his stuff in the process of worrying about that guy at first base.
Brian Johnson behind the plate, handling Bergman tonight. 1-2 now to Willie Green with Thomas Howard aboard. Outfield is deep and straight away for Willie, who's hit 4 home runs. He takes a fastball that runs right back out over the plate. He gave up on it. Bergman had good late movement for his first strikeout, and let's get it back to Gary Miller.
Bob, lots of information. The number 2 hitter in the American League, Chuck Knobloch, 0 for 5 as he taps into a double play to end the game. 5-3 Mariner win. Home runs by Griffey and Rodriguez. They have 108 home runs, 399 runs to lead the league. Strawberry hits 2 home runs for the Twins minor league team, and I'm from Naperville.
Everybody's from Naperville.
We knew there had to be a tie in there somewhere. I don't think Gary can go deep like those guys, though, can he? Here's Al Morris in the dirt. And a good play by Brian Johnson. Padres have a pretty good catching tandem here. Johnson has been really hitting well lately. Brad Osmus probably his superior defensively. But Brad's bat has been very quiet. He is, at least for the moment, appealing his 1-game suspension for bumping umpire Mike Winters on Sunday. But the scuttlebutt around the Padre camp is, as soon as he knows he's not going to be in there one day, he's going to call the league office and say, I'm going to withdraw the appeal.
That's right. And he probably will have to wait till August before he can really do that, because that's when they go to New York for the next time. And when we talked earlier, Johnson's in the game for his bat tonight, and this guy right here, Osmus, is just a great defensive catcher, throwing out somewhere in the neighborhood of 38% of the runners. So right now, San Diego needs Johnson's bat, not Osmus's defense.
Same way the Reds need Taubensee, not Oliver. Hal Morris hit into the 4-6-3 double play, first time up. As we mentioned, an 8-game hitting streak on the line tonight.
Now, if any of you kids are home, got your VCRs popped in and got the recorder going, you got to shut it off if you want to look at somebody and take somebody and try to emulate their mechanics. Hal Morris is a guy, when you look at his feet, he's dancing around. It's not something you want to teach. And if you're going to see right here at this pitch how he just absolutely dances in the batter's box and actually charges with his body and his feet.
He's got one of the funniest moves of his front foot. Foul tip with the runner going. Thomas Howard back to first base on strike 2.
Now look at his back foot. It comes forward, and then he steps. And see, that's not necessarily important, Bob, because the fact is it's where he is when he's getting ready to hit the pitch. He really does have his back foot down and his front foot down when he goes to swing the bat. And he is making a transfer from his backside to his front side, and obviously it's been successful for him. But you certainly don't want to teach it.
1 ball, 2 strikes. I don't know how you would teach that. That's a curveball that was very close to catching the inside corner.
I don't know if it's very close. I think it did catch the pitch, and maybe, once in a while umpires get fooled on pitches too, as well as hitters, and I'm sure Hal's pretty lucky standing up there with the bat still in his hand. A lot of times as a hitter, you take a pitch and you think, boy, I really knew what I was doing there. And it doesn't necessarily work that way. You just get another free strike is really what it comes down to. You don't look back at the umpire with your eyes. You don't say thank you very much. You just kind of look forward, and I think everybody knows. I think the catcher knows, the umpire knows, and the batter knows, and especially the pitcher knows you got away with another one.
2-2 now the count. Howard, they think he's going to be running. Thomas Howard swiped 17 bases for the Reds last year when he hit .302 in 113 ball games. But as we mentioned, 0 for 4 so far this year. He's got his front foot right out to the end of that cut of grass, and now beyond. He's running. Ball 3, throw low, and he is safely in there. He will move on to third base on the error by Brian Johnson. Thomas Howard with his first steal of the year, third error by Johnson, and a runner suddenly at third with only 1 out. Ray Knight is a very aggressive manager when it comes to stealing bases. Only Houston has stolen more than Cincinnati.
Yeah, and you can see there that Bergman's leg actually picked up a little bit longer. It was actually a higher step than he did the previous pitches he was throwing, so that really gave Howard a chance to steal the base. He did steal on Bergman, not Johnson, even though it was a bad throw. Even a good throw doesn't get him in that situation.
Now the infield comes in. 3-2 now to Hal Morris. Great chance for his 25th RBI. And he'll hang with the breaking ball and manage to foul it off. That's what happens when things are going bad for you.
Yeah, they do. Every ball goes in the center. You don't remove runners out. And you can see there, you know, you're really giving up an awful lot defensively when you got Brian Johnson in the game.
And even going back further than that, Andy, you make a pretty good 1-2 pitch, a curveball to the inside corner. You don't get the call.
Right.
And then 2 pitches later, you're looking at a runner at third and Hal Morris up there.
It just takes a fly ball now to go down 2-0. And that's, you know, as a pitcher, that's very frustrating. You make the pitch you want, 1 and 2. You know, then now Morris, he's falling off pitches, and he's actually fallen off a couple good pitches that Bergman has really got him out on before. So, you know, he's in a real tight situation here. Now he's almost got to make the perfect pitch, or even a pitch out of the strike zone to get Hal Morris up, because he's seen his curveball, he has seen his fastball, and he's seen his changeup. There's nothing that he can throw that's going to fool him in this situation.
Look how far off the plate Hal Morris is. 3-2 pitch. He reaches the low one. You know, you watch him set up from our center field camera, and you wonder how he could ever reach a fastball that would tail to the outside corner.
Well, there was a guy who played many years ago in St. Louis. His name was Stan Musial, who stood in the back of the box in a position that no one wanted him to do. And there was many coaches, and Stan Musial talks about this, that told him, "You'll never hit like that, kid. You'll never hit like standing there in the box and with that batting stance." And he went on to have a few hits in his career.
Yeah. Oh, there's a breaking ball. There was not a strike on the inside corner, but with a backdoor breaking ball, there was a strike on the outside corner for the second out.
Well, umpires will never say that there's a makeup pitch, but I think Ed Mattingly realizes he missed one early, and this pitch actually maybe goes around the plate, but it's too close to take. Hal Morris had too many looks to be taking that pitch, and I'm sure Hal has in his mind nothing to complain about, because he got an extra few swings up there.
2 strikeouts, 2 outs. Eric Davis, the batter. Second straight time that Eric has batted with a runner at third and 2 down. Back in the first inning with Thomas Howard sitting over there, he walked, and then Taubensee flied out to end the inning.
And he's starting quietly to establish that breaking ball now, Bob, and that's going to be imperative for him. And he hasn't thrown too many changeups tonight, so it looks like right now he feels very comfortable with that curveball, that little slider.
Big curveball. That one was really hard. Probably the hardest curveball we've seen him throw. And he's got Davis in the hole 0-2, and he's 1 pitch away from striking out the side.
And really gets away with one. This is a hanger. But you're going to get away with more hanging breaking balls than you are fastballs in the middle of the part of the plate.
0-2. And another big hook, and Davis had to reach down to pick that one up. Sean Bergman, 7-10 for the Tigers of Sparky Anderson last year. An ERA of 5.12, 28 starts. Then he came over in the trade to the Padres with outfielder Todd Steverson and pitcher Cade Gaspar for the Melvin Nieves, catcher Raul Casanova, and pitcher Richie Lewis combination on March 22nd this past spring training. Filling in a bit with Andy Ashby unavailable. Trying to keep it a 1-0 game. Fastball. A little bit out over the plate, but he threw it hard enough that Eric Davis was late for it.
Yeah, and he actually was trying to get that ball a little bit more in on the hands, and it did get back over the plate, so he's really gotten away with 2 bad pitches so far this at-bat to Eric Davis, and all he really needs to do is make 1 good pitch, and I think he's be out of the inning. It's not too often you get away with 3 or 4 pitches to a major league hitter and get out of the inning without giving up a run with a runner on third, but we're going to see whether he can make a good pitch right here, because I think he does. He's going to get an out.
And the ball does not carry that well here in San Diego at nighttime, like on the West Coast at most parks. You can get the fly ball here to the deep part of the park. High tight with the fastball, and it hit Eric Davis. It nicked him on the glove as it went by.
I'm always amazed when you get nicked. You know, a hitter will hold his hand and act like it hurts a lot. I mean, that's a situation right there where that ball just barely hits him, and yet, you know, I've done it for some reason. It's just a natural reaction to act like the ball actually hurts, but it doesn't.
Let's listen in. That's sounded like a little tip.
Just a little foul tip. And if that ball goes straight down, you know, Eric Davis has a bloody knuckle and maybe even a broken finger, but that just barely hit the bottom of his hand. And I never really liked that with a guy in third. I'd rather take that swing and take my chances.
Well, Eddie Taubensee gets that chance.
And it really is a better situation for Cincinnati. He's got a fresh count and an open hole over here on the right side.
But the first time up, in a situation just like this, they worked Taubensee away and forced him to hit the ball to the left side. Thus the fly ball near the line that was caught by Mark Newfield. So this third inning mirrors the first with the exception of the double play ball. And here we go on 1-0. They're keeping the ball away. He goes to left field again. This time it drops in front of Newfield, and the Reds lead 2-0. So they keep giving Taubensee away. He takes the base hit for his 21st RBI.
Well, two little wedge shots to left field against Bergman. Howard starts inning off with a little wedge shot in front of left fielder, and this one is off the end of the bat too, and the ball's sinking away. It's actually a good location, good pitch, but the ball's just diving. You don't hit it good enough to reach the outfield. That's always a good rule. Number one rule, never hit the ball good enough to get to the outfield.
Good rule. Now here's Brett Boone. Bounced up the middle last time. Behind the mound, Cedeno ranged to throw him out. So a base hit, a steal, an error, a hit batter, and another dunker. And the Reds lead 2-0 here in the third. Low and away, 2-0. Turning into a long night for Sean Bergman. He's only in his third inning of work. There's only 2 strikeouts in this frame, but tonight he's walked 2, hit 1, and given up 4 base hits. Now he's having trouble with that sinker the same way he did in the first inning, 3-0.
Yeah, a lot of times when you're sidestepping and you're sidestepping and you're sidestepping, all of a sudden you get in a situation where you guys got first and second, you know the runners aren't going to be running. All of a sudden you change your motion a little bit. You pick up your leg, you're a little bit more deliberate to home plate, and that consequently puts your arm in a different position when you go to deliver the pitch. So it's an adjustment when you pick your leg all the way up than when you sidestep, and right now he's not been able to make that adjustment. And even though he's thrown more strikes than balls, it certainly has been too many pitches.
Less than 3 innings of work. 3-0 to Boone. And a fastball above belt high for strike 1. High tight with that fastball and a fly ball to left center. Who's going to catch it? Coming on and grabbing it is Newfield. Ricky Henderson didn't get there. Cedeno couldn't get out there. And Newfield saves at least another run. So the Padres get out of it as the Reds score only 1. And they will strand a couple of runners. Great range by Newfield. 2-0 Cincinnati. Earlier tonight, we talked about Mark Newfield's offense, and he showed some great range coming in to make a difficult play with 2 men aboard right here.
Well, there's one spot in the field where demolition derby takes place, and that's when the infielder comes out, the center fielder or left fielder, right fielder come together, and Ricky not able to get to the ball. Newfield makes a nice adjustment and comes and makes that nice sliding play.
Here's John Smiley facing only his 7th batter of the night. Bottom of the third rolls around. Brian Johnson. There's the reason he's in there. Offense. Brad Osmus is hitting 193. And Johnson's done it again, out to the gap in right center. Padres have their first base runner of the game. This is a ball club that has to string hits together because they're last in the league in home runs with 43.
They also have one of those good stats, bad stats situations where they've had the most men on base, but they, you know, I mean, that's a situation where you're getting a lot of guys on, but you're leaving the most men on base, and that's a stat you certainly want to start to erase as the season goes on. Like you said, when that happens, that means you're getting a hit, maybe 2 outs in every inning, and you're just not able to drive people home, and that's really been the case for San Diego. They're just not getting 2-out hits with men on.
Number 8 man is Andujar Cedeno. Lately, his defense has been brutal. But in a game last Wednesday that sort of served as a microcosm for his season, he made a couple of errors that gave the Cardinals a couple of runs. But the same night, he gets 3 base hits and helps them with offense win the game with that 4-run 9th inning rally. He's got a good stick. Out to the gap it goes. Johnson makes the turn and goes to third. Cedeno knocks him over there with a base hit. And the Padres suddenly put the tying runs on base. They're at the corners with the pitcher coming up.
Well, talking to Marv Redman before the game, Bob, and what he wanted to do was try to get Cedeno to slow down his body, slow down his action. Right here you can see he's really not moving, waving that bat before the ball comes into the strike zone. So Johnson knows the ball's in the gap. He goes from first to third even though he's got catcher speed. And now they're in a situation they have not been in very much the last couple of weeks, and that's first and third with no outs.
Sean Bergman never batted in the big leagues until this year. There it goes to left field. That is his first career home run. Welcome to the National League, and it's 3-2 San Diego. And by the way, those were not his first RBIs. Into that at bat, he was 2 for 26 with a couple of ribbies, and he single-battedly puts his team on top.
Well, I don't know how to explain it. The simple fact is he probably just hit his bat. He was probably just looking for a first pitch fastball. Didn't get the bunt sign, and there was no doubt about it. This is a legit home run. That's up in the seats. And that's just something that you just don't see very often, a pitcher slapping the first base coach's hand going around first base, especially from a guy who comes from the American League.
Well, usually they don't even get to make a left turn.
No.
Usually they're going the other way, and it's suddenly a 3-2 San Diego lead here in the third inning.
Yeah, but he acted like he's done that before.
Well, he was an All-American at Southern Illinois University in the collegiate ranks. Whether he hit any home runs, I don't know. But not many of them could have felt as good as that. Top of the order, Ricky Henderson, the batter. And Smiley drops one in, 1-2.
You know, talking with Ray Knight before the game, Bob and I, you know, we discussed with Ray, when John Smiley gives up runs, they're usually in bunches. He doesn't give up a run here, doesn't give up a run there. It's usually in bunches, and that's really been his problem this year.
Ricky goes away with a changeup. He's thrown out by Brett Boone. Smiley comes back with a good pitch to retire Ricky Henderson for the first out.
Makes 2 good pitches, 2 changeups back-to-back.
Number 3, second baseman.
He got burned on this curveball, so he looks like he's going to can that for a little while and go with his changeup.
Crowd is still buzzing here about that pitcher 3-run homer. Jody Reed is the batter.
This is an imperative game tonight for San Diego. They got a tough road trip coming up starting in Chicago tomorrow.
And suddenly, out of nowhere, they start hitting John Smiley hard. That's the 4th line drive of the inning.
Right fielder, number 19.
Well, Jody Reed's a first pitch fastball type of hitter. He gets the pitch he was looking for. Fastball just drives it the other way. And Jody Reed, a much more comfortable hitter in the 2 spot than he is in the 8 spot. Nice inside-out swing taken to the right side.
Andy, why is that? Why does a guy get more charged about batting up high than down low?
Well, I mean, obviously he's in that guard spot. He's got a guy in front of him like Ricky Henderson who can steal bases, going to see a lot of fastballs.
Tony Gwynn fighting off a high tight pitch and a little pop-up caught by Branson.
And also you got Tony Gwynn behind you. I mean, to me, that's the easiest spot to hit in all baseball, is that number 2 spot. Usually you have a guy who can lead off, steal some bases. And you also have your number 3 hitter, who usually your best hitter on the team.
But I've always heard that it's tough to bat there, where you might have to take an extra pitch or 2 and give your guy a chance to steal.
No, I've hit second before, and I always thought it was very easy. You're just going to see a lot more pitches in the strike zone, I think. Well, I mean, unless you got Barry Bonds behind you or some kind of other hitter behind you. But when Tony Gwynn's behind you, it's got to be the easiest spot in the National League to hit in.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, it's great for hitting second.
Yeah. I've always heard what a tough job Carney Lansford had in Oakland behind Ricky and Ted Sizemore, and St. Louis behind Lou Brock, and Junior Gilliam in L.A. behind Maury Wills. I didn't know it was so easy for those guys. Boy, they are ripping the ball now. And as Andy said earlier, don't hit it well enough to carry to an outfielder. Eric Davis puts that one away. 4 hits in the inning by the Padres. Bergman goes deep for 3, and the middle of the ball game is coming up. He looks like he expected that one. 3-2 Pods. Well, we've got a good one going here. A little excitement there in the 3rd inning on Bergman's 3-run homer. ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball. John Smiley not too pleased at the moment on the short end of a 3-2 score. And coming up Sunday Night Baseball, the game of the week, Robbie Alomar. Can he possibly do it? 397 into today's action, leading the Orioles against the Royals. He went 2 for 4 today with a couple of RBIs. He's up to 399 in the AL East. The Orioles and the Yankees going at it. You'll see the Orioles and the Royals on Sunday Night Baseball. And a little pop-up out to Jody Reed. Every time I see that Baltimore-Kansas City matchup, I think of ESPN's first ever day of Major League Baseball on opening day 1990. That was the matchup, the Orioles at Kansas City. Sam Horn put 2 of them into the fountain that day. And I don't think we heard much from Big Sam the rest of that season.
No, we didn't.
Here's a home run hitter who we heard from 2 innings ago, Jeff Branson. 4 homers now, 15 batted in as he went deep to right center. Bergman throws a good sinker to the outside corner at the knees.
And maybe this will be a little shot in the arm for Bergman and establish his pitching repertoire. His curveball there, his changeup.
Well, Andy, that's the best sinker curveball combination we've seen tonight.
Yeah, I think it's the first time he's been 0-2 tonight, except for Eric Davis, and he just needs to finish out each hitter when he gets ahead of him. That's the one thing that he hasn't done so far tonight, is finish out a hitter, shut him down when he's got him deep in the count.
Hits are even at 4 in the top of the 4th inning. Branson hitting ahead of Smiley. Got him with a breaking ball that was up. 3rd strikeout by Bergman. He spanned 3 of the last 5 men he's retired.
Well, there's always a bad location left-handers, and that's a breaking ball running in towards their hands. And this one, you can see he tried to get his hands out in front of him, just couldn't do it in time. And that's a good location for a left-handed hitter. That's a pitch you don't want to throw to right-handed hitters, but for left-handers, it's for some reason, and I can't explain it to this day, is they just don't seem to get those hands out fast enough to hit that breaking ball. The best I've seen do it since I've been playing is Tony Gwynn. He just has a real knack getting the head of the bat and keeping balls fair, and I think that's the biggest thing.
Smiley flied to center first time. This one cut off by Caminiti, but he drops it. And we'll see how they score it. It was not an easy play, but it appeared to be a makeable play for an outstanding 3rd baseman. They will give John Smiley a base hit.
And let me get back to my point about that breaking ball in on a left-hander. Tony Gwynn is one of the few hitters, when he does hit that pitch, he keeps it fair. And it's unique because it's very, very unique in the sense that he's able to get his hands out in front of him. And this ball right here is off the end of the bat. And I don't know about the official scoring on this one. This is a big league 3rd baseman right here, won a Gold Glove, and he just needs to make that play.
Thomas Howard, the batter, with 2 outs. Another thing that surprised us was when they called Cincinnati's run unearned in the top of the 3rd. Thomas Howard moved to 3rd base after a steal on a throwing error by Brian Johnson. But he scored on a 2-out blooper to left field. With 2 outs, he's going to be running with contact. There was no way they would throw him out at the plate, but the scorer here in San Diego called that an unearned run. That'll even the count, a ball and a strike to Thomas Howard, who's been on base twice. Walked in the 1st, stranded at 3rd. Scored that so-called unearned run after a base hit and a steal in the 3rd.
Well, I've always argued, one of the ways you want to improve Major League Baseball, get every official score in each league to come down on the field and take some ground balls, try to hit some balls, try to throw the ball from the outfield, get out there in the gap, get in situations that these guys are in, and they're going to make, I think, better decisions when it comes to official scoring. I mean, that's a play that I mean, nothing against Ken Caminiti. He just didn't simply pick up the ball and throw the ball to first base. John Smiley, who's about 6'0" down to first base, I mean, he's so slow. All you have to do is catch the ball and make a throw.
And there's always the human element that comes in. You know, you've got a local rider or a local guy keeping score. He might be pulling for Caminiti to win that Gold Glove again.
Right.
And even if he doesn't mean to do it subconsciously, he might make that call because of that.
And I'm sure if you ask him after the game whether that's an error or not, and he will be totally candid with you, and I'm guaranteed he's going to say that was an error.
I bet they're debating that one a bit on press row. 2 balls, 2 strikes to Howard. So Andy Van Slyke puts out the mandate. All official scorers should have to take hot grounders at the hot corner.
Hot corner first. Try to, get out there and take some shots off the bat, some line drive.
2-2 pitch. Good fastball away, and the Reds are gone in the 4th. They've stranded 5 runners. It was San Diego leaving 13 on last night. Futility now for Cincinnati. Well, here on the West Coast, they're not entirely sure if SportsCenter is next, so they just give us the network letters. Welcome to ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball. Bob Carpenter with Andy Van Slyke. Andy, it's interesting, the Padres not drawing that big out here, an average of about 23,000 a game, but with Seattle, actually the only 2 teams in baseball whose attendance is up this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that really hasn't been talked about. Attendance is down from last year, coming off the strike year. It's a surprising stat, but they have a reason to come to the ballpark here in San Diego. They got a good young team. They got some veterans also, and they're an exciting team. Right now, obviously, they haven't been playing very well, but this is a team I think when come September will be giving the Dodgers in the West everything they can handle.
Dodgers aren't exactly hitting the cover off the ball right now. They just split a 2-game series up in L.A. with the Cardinals, and Mike Piazza is nursing a sore knee. Eric Karros, he finally has his bat going now. But they've got a problem up in the leadoff spot, trying to figure out who's going to play left field and center field with Brett Butler out.
And they also got to really attack an issue with Mike Piazza, whether he's going to be able to catch 130 games and be effective.
That's a fair ball from Sinfaco down into the corner. Archie will dig for 2. Thomas Howard will dig it out. Perfectly placed right down the line. And after 6 Padres were retired in a row, Andy, 5 of the last 9 have now hit safely.
Yeah, and they've been on fastballs and curveballs, and yet not on a changeup, and that's what John was effective up in Los Angeles in his last start. He didn't give up any hits on his changeup, and that's just a bad location. And as a big league hitter, when you get a fastball in the middle part of the plate, you're supposed to drive it. Tim Franco does a nice job here, and everybody in Morris Corner up there in Rome, New York, are very happy about this kid. I only know that because I'm from the area.
Of course you are. Upstate New York.
Upstate New Yorker. Rome, New York, not too far outside of Utica.
Did you catch your old skipper, Jim Leland, on Up Close on ESPN today?
Yes, I did. It was a nice little interview, and the nice thing about Jim Leland is he always shows the human element of a big league manager. He's always willing to show the emotional part or the true makeup of who he really is, and I always appreciated that as a player when I played for Jim Leland.
Hard breaking ball in on Newfield on the corner, and the count's even, a ball and a strike. Newfield struck out swinging first time up. He has contributed defensively with the glove. And keep in mind that right after he made that play in short left field in the top of the 3rd to end the inning and strand 2 Cincinnati runners, 3 batters later, the Padres took the lead on the pitcher home run by Bergman. So he put a charge in his team with that play, and they responded with the bats just a few moments later.
Well, this club's been successful the first 8 weeks of the season based on that. They were getting big defensive plays, and they were getting good pitching. And early on, they were leading the league in hitting. Right now, you've got a couple guys in the lineup who are not hitting like they were early in the year, but it is the defense and the pitching that's going to carry Bruce Bochy's team into the postseason if they can do it over the course of the rest of the year.
By the way, that was rookie umpire Ron Barnes saying no swing down there at first base. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Got him. That looked like a cut fastball. Maybe a little off-speed pitch that he got up and in, and Newfield was frozen at the plate. And that's strikeout number 3 by Smiley.
Well, I think it's either a 2-seam fastball or a changeup. I think it's more of a changeup. Yeah, that's a changeup. He's got the changeup grip, and the ball actually comes back a little bit and has fooled him. And there hasn't been one good swing from the Padres on John Smiley's changeup tonight. So, you know, it seems to me that John's going to stick with this pitch now.
Here's Brian Johnson. He got the rally started last inning. He got jammed and fouled it off to the right side.
And I've seen John in the past basically throw fastball changeup and pitch 9 innings, so it's something he can do if he's got total command of that changeup.
Fly ball left field. He jammed him, so it's not going to carry very far. Howard's got it for the second out. Sinfranco still at second base, and here's Gary Miller.
Bob, it's over in Seattle, but it's not over. The Bulls shot horrifically, had the all-time worst quarter in NBA Finals history with 11 in the second. The Sonics were on their game. Peyton, 11 assists, 21 points. Kemp, 25 points, 11 rebounds. They win 107-86. Game 5 Friday in Seattle. Back to you.
All right, Gary. Yeah, they go 3 games at home in the middle rather than the 2-2, 1-1-1 format in the previous round, so Seattle gets to play at home one more time. Decisive 21-point win tonight. Andujar Cedeno with the base hit to right center his first time. He and Johnson scored on the Bergman home run. Andujar Cedeno is turning into the antithesis of a good field no-hit shortstop. Lately, his offense has been much better than his work defensively.
And he's not been able to separate that yet, Bob. It seems like, you know, I was talking to a couple of players, teammates of his, and there was a guy that can separate defense from offense. He's never had a problem doing that. When he doesn't hit the ball well, he doesn't play good defense. And as a professional, I mean, when you get to this level, you've got to learn to separate your defense from your offense, and he's not been able to do that so far.
Okay, you were one of the better defensive center fielders for a long time. How were you able to do it when you went into those slumps?
Well, I always just wanted, if I couldn't hit anybody, I wasn't going to allow anybody to hit my pitchers, and I always took a lot of pride in trying to take hits away as much as I possibly could without hurting them by maybe diving for a ball that I shouldn't have. But I wanted to hurt that offensive team with my defense as much as I could.
Well, Smiley comes back strong in the 4th inning, stranding a runner. Padres have left 2, and they lead 3-2 after 4. Jack Murphy Stadium in San Diego, top of the 5th inning, and the Padres on the Sean Bergman home run lead at 3-2. Hits are even at 5. Willie Green first for the Reds, and Bergman drops one in there. Willie Green followed by Hal Morris and Eric Davis. Bergman was at the 60-pitch mark in the first 3 innings. Last inning, he gave up only a scratch hit by John Smiley, struck out a couple. All 4 of his strikeouts in the last 2 innings. A high towering drive that sends Ricky Henderson back, and he catches it about 390 feet away for the first down here in the 5th inning. Well, for you hockey fans who are going through withdrawal, how about Saturday at 7:30 Eastern? ESPN presents the Showdown in Miami. A look back at Monday's Stanley Cup Final, one of the great games in Stanley Cup Final history. Interviews, reactions, parades, and a look at the impact on Denver and South Florida. A couple of places where hockey would have been scoffed at maybe a few years ago. Saturday night, 7:30 Eastern on ESPN. A look back at a great, great night of hockey. Hal Morris not having a very good night so far. Double play, ball, and a strikeout. And strike 1 from Sean Bergman.
Well, Bergman now is doing something he didn't do the first 4 innings, and that's get ahead of these hitters.
Well, that's not bad when you can put a 91-mile-an-hour sinking fastball right there.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I didn't think he was going to be throwing that hard, but when he throws a little bit harder, his ball flattens out. So right now he's got confidence in that fastball, and he's throwing a little bit harder than I anticipated.
Not many guys can throw the sinker that hard. I'm thinking of Kevin Braun of the Marlins, who established that hard sinker when he was with Texas. He would normally throw it in the 91, 92-mile-an-hour range.
Yeah, but I think that, you know, Kevin Brown's ball moves a little bit more than Bergman's. And right there, a nice curveball. Get him out in front.
5 strikeouts now, all coming in the last 2 2/3.
Well, it's really location and movement. He sets them up. He throws them 3 fastballs. He's behind 1 and 2, and he pulls the string a little bit. When you throw 91, 92, and then you throw an 85-mile-an-hour breaking ball, you get out in front. Now watch how he gets out in front, out on his front foot too early, and doesn't get the bat in the right position to hit it. And so, I mean, that's just good pitching right there. Set him up for a breaking ball.
Eric Davis goes up hacking on a high curve. No official at-bats for Eric yet tonight. A walk in the first. On an 0-2 pitch in the third, his hand was nicked by a high-tight fastball.
And really had him set up for a high-tight fastball, just that it got away. And the last time up, he threw him nothing but breaking balls until that pitch did nick him.
Boy, it seems to me, Andy, like that trip around the bases got some extra adrenaline flowing for Bergman. His fastball's faster, his location's better. He's still going to be way up there after 5 or 6 innings of pitching, though, as far as his count. Helps to have a guy like Caminiti at the hot corner. And now he's retired 7 of the last 8 men he's faced. Halfway through our nightcap in San Diego, the Padres by 1. And here on Wednesday Night Baseball, look out, folks. Here comes Sean Bergman. First pitch back in the third.
Well, the ball was sitting on a tee, Bob, and he did exactly what I'm sure he didn't anticipate doing. That's hit it in the left field seats.
Guy who spent all of his professional career prior to this year in the Tigers system.
And that's another reason why I like to see the DH eliminated right there. I mean, it's exciting when a pitcher goes up there, hits a 3-run homer, and really has a chance of winning 3-2 tonight and shutting down the opposing team and being the guy who drives in all 3 runs. And I think that's what makes the game more exciting.
6th-round selection by the Tigers back in '91. There's a guy who can hack, Fernando Valenzuela. Hard swing and a miss. And Fernando's been known to hit the ball out of the ballpark. Ball getting away. Bergman's going to get aboard. Everything's going right for him now.
Well, he doesn't really slide over and get his body in front of the pitch here, Bob. And watch what he does here. He picks his head up first. And the mistake he does here, he tries to pick the ball up with his glove instead of taking his hand. And one of the rules you do when you go to pick up a baseball is you take your hand and you try to drive your hand into the ground, and that makes sure that you get the ball first.
Yeah.
And what he tried to do is he tried to pick the ball up with his glove, and that's a mistake.
Here's Ricky Henderson. Strikeout number 5 for Smiley and a wild pitch. He has kept Ricky off base tonight. Henderson is 0 for 2 with a pair of ground balls. Two balls, no strikes. Jody Reed and Tony Gwynn to follow. Ricky doesn't like Smiley's stuff. Some of those matchups go back to the American League. Smiley, of course, pitched for Minnesota in '92 when he went 16-9 for Tom Kelly. 2 balls and a strike. Down in the dirt that one was. A footnote on Fernando, that good hitting pitcher. He's gone deep 10 times in his career with a very healthy total of 81 runs batted in. So he's talking hitting. If I was out there, I'd put us ahead in this game, says Fernando.
Probably thinks he should be playing first base.
Well, I'd have to question his mobility around that bag. Another pitch in the dirt, and Henderson offered at it. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
And this is nice for John Smiley. This is going to be very important. John, when we talked to Ray Knight, he said the one thing that has hurt John Smiley this year so far has been the little things like that, the strikeout, the pass ball. And like we said earlier, it's been coming in bunches for John, so this is going to be a big inning for him, the kind of inning he thought wasn't going to start.
A pitch away, and Henderson goes that way and knocks it out of play. Kind of a coffin corner down there in the bullpen area. Anything you can get down there, and outfielders often disappear.
Now you see that corner right over there. I had a situation when I was with the Cardinals playing right field where the ball actually went so far down in the corner that the first base umpire and the second base umpire couldn't see me down in the corner. The ball hits my glove, bounces on the ground, comes up on one hop, and I still got the ball in my hand. I come out and show the umpire the ball. They never saw it hit the ground.
Andy Van Slyke cheating. A 6-3 double play ball as Bergman is caught off.
Now, wait a minute. Cheating?
Well,
what do you want me to do, run in from right field and say I didn't catch it?
you were taking what the game would give you.
Absolutely.
We'll put it that way.
Absolutely.
Well, Bergman, the hitter, not quite the same as Bergman, the base runner. A hot shot right at Branson. The 6-3 double play, and the bases are wiped clean now with 2 outs.
I'm not sure if Eric Gregg was umpiring at second base at that time or not, but chances are pretty good that he was.
I'm not touching that one.
You can see how they're almost now. See how he disappeared, that Cincinnati Red pitcher or whoever that might have been. He just disappears in that corner. Unless you run out towards center field as the second base umpire, you're not going to see him.
I bet there were some fans down there who knew you dropped it.
They did.
1 ball, 1 strike. Right to the outside corner from Smiley.
And that's been his most effective pitch tonight, is that changeup. He got behind on Henderson 2-0 and threw him 3 changeups in a row, fouled off one of them. And like we said, I don't think John's giving up a hit tonight on that changeup.
Jody Reed with 12 doubles on the year. He can still hit doubles now that he's not playing at Fenway anymore. And Andy, you came up earlier tonight with one of the more interesting numbers I've heard in a long time about where this guy ranks in doubles.
All time. He ranks 4th all time in doubles average. He hits the double every 13 times, and 5th on that list is Wade Boggs, so he's in pretty good company.
So a couple of Fenway guys on that list, obviously, with the Green Monster lurking out there.
Right, and Jody Reed, when he played in Boston, loved to pull the ball and play ping pong off that left field wall. So I think he actually had 45 doubles one year when he played for Boston. So obviously that ratio has probably gone up a little bit, but still a very good doubles type of hitter.
Not a man you would normally associate with extra base hits. He hits one to Morris. Nice play by Hal. He'll go to the bag himself. And the Padres, after the wild pitch, then go in order. 5 innings in the scorebook here in San Diego, and the Pods lead 3-2 over Cincinnati.
ESPN's Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by Office Depot, taking care of business for companies of every size, everywhere, every day. And by your local Sherwin-Williams paint and decorating stores. Ask Sherwin-Williams, America's neighborhood place for paint.
This game settling down into a mid-inning pitcher's duel now. Top of the 6th coming up. Taubensee, Boone, and Mottola for the Reds. John Smiley hooking up with Sean Bergman here in a 3-2 ball game. First pitch bouncer by Taubensee. Pitcher has to cover. Nice athletic move by the big fella for the first out. Sinfranco had come off the bag, and so Jody Reed only had 1 man to look to, and that was the pitcher on the 4-1.
Well, you start this play way back in the first day of spring training, is covering first base, no matter if the second baseman ends up with the ball or the first baseman. And Bergman does a nice job bouncing off the mound, and it's Jody Reed's ball all the way. It's just that Sinfranco doesn't play first base very much and probably went a little bit too far. Puts his head down, picks up the base.
That's why you give the ball to the pitcher before he gets to the bag, right?
As early as you can. The earlier you give it to him, the less problems you're going to have over there, trying to catch the ball and pick up the base at the same time.
Well, Brett Boone's been robbed twice by the Padre defense tonight. Cedeno up the middle to throw him out on a bouncer in the 2nd. And the diving play by Newfield in left field in the 3rd. This drive deep right field, and Tony Gwynn to the edge of the track. Brett Boone, a hard luck 0 for 3. And now Sean Bergman is retired. 9 of the last 10 Reds. 8 of the last 9 since he hit his home run. He had retired Boone on that dangerous pop fly to end the 3rd. Went deep in the bottom of the inning, and he's been in cruise control ever since. Hard to believe, Andy, that he might pitch into the 7th or 8th inning in this ball game.
Well, I think what Bruce Bochy has to do next time he starts is lead him off the top of the 1st, hit him in the first spot, hit a home run, and his first inning problems and early problems in the game will be over.
Yeah, maybe have him warm up an extra 5 minutes or so. Mottola has popped up to second base twice tonight. Not going to reach that sinker. Mottola hit a combined 18 home runs at AA Chattanooga, AAA Indianapolis last year. 76 RBIs between those two places. And that was in about 440 at-bats. A bouncer, Caminiti. He has got a gun. 10 of 11 now for Sean Bergman. What's gotten into this guy? The Reds are going quietly and quickly. Quinn, Caminiti, and Sanfranco in the bottom of the sixth coming up. Well, here in San Diego, looking out west toward the beaches, SeaWorld is out there, Mission Bay, and panning right over to beautiful Jack Murphy Stadium, the home of the Padres. 3-2 San Diego as the Pods bat in the bottom of the sixth inning, and thanks to Blockbuster and the video blimp for providing ESPN with our beautiful aerial shots of the San Diego area during tonight's ball game. John Smiley against Tony Gwynn. Last night, Tony had a 3-for-5 night with a run scored and an RBI. After an 0-for-4 Monday night, he's been slumping lately. But one thing in Tony's defense, his feet have been absolutely killing him. And Hal Morris will give him first base on an error. In fact, in the last 24 hours, Tony Gwynn finally had some shoes that will ease his pain arrive at Jack Murphy Stadium that he can hit with and run with. His feet have been driving him absolutely nuts for the last month or so.
Yeah, I mean, it has been driving nuts. And actually, if you see the back of his shoe, he's cut out the back of his shoe to relieve some of that tension in that Achilles, in that back of that heel. And you can see there, even when he crossed first base, that he's still running a little bit tender. And that's something that obviously I don't think is going to go away until the offseason. Hopefully the offseason it will go away. Because when you're on your feet and using those feet every day, it just takes the pounding.
And Tony will tell you, as Caminiti takes strike right down the middle, Tony will tell you it's not just running that bothers him. Even being in the batter's box and taking his usual strides and moving around in there, his feet have really been barking at him. Was it a swing? No, says Ron Barnes. That's the right-hander throwing for the Reds, Johnny Ruffin, who can really throw hard. You heard the pop of that mitt all over the ballpark. And Tony Gwynn, with those sore feet, is not going to get caught off first base for a double play.
No, he's not. And I mean, Tony Gwynn's a great base runner, whether he's got good feet or bad feet, and he does the right thing. He just freezes on a line drive, because even if the ball goes down the corner, he knows he's going to end up at third. And if the ball does go down the corner, he knows he can't score. So either way, he does the right thing. He just freezes on that line drive.
1-on, 1-out, Arky Sanfranco. This is a guy who can hit home runs. He has not hit one yet this year. His time will come, because he's a big guy at 6'5", 215 that's hit homers in the past. 10 at Vegas and 5 here in San Diego last year. At AAA in the major league level. In 140 ball games collected, 89 runs batted in.
And he hasn't shown that home run power here at the big league level yet, Bob. And one of the reasons is if you pay attention to his legs, and then hopefully he gets a hit here, and that'll show a replay.
Sent a fly ball out to fairly deep center for Eric Davis, and that's the second.
You're going to see here how he just spins on his feet, and there's no leg drive. And when you look at all the big home run hitters, and he's a big enough kid where he can drive the ball to the ballpark, he doesn't use that back leg. Watch how he just spins. Watch his front toe. His front toe will just spin and collapses. And there's no drive off that back leg, and because there's no drive transfer from the back side to the front side, he's not able to drive the ball to the ballpark, because like I said, he's a big enough kid to do it.
So he's basically just hitting with his arms and his hands.
Yeah, he's really hitting from the waist up, and to hit home runs and drive the ball, you've got to hit from the knees up.
Well, the Padres may ask you to stick around out here for a couple of days.
No, I don't think so.
Newfield. Swinging strike 3.
They've got a great hitting coach, Murph. I mean, this
Murph
guy,
Redmond.
Murph, I mean, he really knows what he's talking about when it comes to hitting.
I remember him in his days with the Orioles. He was a good hacker. Hit for power. 2 balls and no strikes to Newfield, who took a strike 3 in the 4th. So the left-hander has worked him over pretty well. Smiley trying to pitch around the leadoff error by Hal Morris. 3-0.
And there's Murph right there. Maybe one of the funniest, I think, one of the funniest, at least, hitting coaches at the major league level. And you know, he has actually told me he's learned a lot from Tony Gwynn about hitting. I mean, that's an interesting statement to hear from a guy who's been in the major leagues for a very, very long time as a player and as a coach.
And a drive out to left center by Newfield. Eric Davis comes in aggressively. Tony Gwynn, sore feet and all, stopping at second base. Andy, that play reminds me of something that you and I have talked about in the past. And that's the fact that outfielders can make themselves better outfielders by the way they charge the ball right off the bat, even when they know the ball is going to hit way in front of them.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that if you charge a ball, always try to catch the ball as soon as you can in the outfield. That just shuts down the running game. And that's one of the things that that I think Eric Davis has done very well in the past, even though he's got a strong, accurate arm. And there's another guy that charges the ball very well with a great arm, and that's Sanders. That is going to prevent more runners from taking an extra base on you and have runners going from home to first being held up by a third base coach more than anything, more than arm strength, more than accuracy.
Well, here's an interesting note. That base hit by Newfield, and there's Brian Johnson, who fouls off the first pitch, was the first time tonight John Smiley had gone to a 3-ball count on a San Diego hitter. Obviously has not walked a man tonight. He has struck out 5, given up 3 runs on 6 hits. And a high fly ball out to Eric Davis. He'll use the glove to signal Matola to head for the dugout. And the Padres are gone in the 6th inning. Stranding only their 3rd runner of the night, and the pitching duel continues. Now Bergman goes back to work with a 3-2 lead. Gwynn stranded. Well, we go to the top of the 7th inning. The Padres will make a few changes defensively. Tony Gwynn changed his shoes, went to the clubhouse for a moment, and for a few minutes we thought he was done for the night, that he will go out and take his customary right field spot.
He's actually got 2 pairs of shoes, and he said tonight that he was only going to wear 1, but he's obviously not comfortable with those hitting shoes on. He wants to go ahead and probably get more of a sneaker type of shoe to play the outfield to try to take some pressure off that heel.
Steve Finley into the ball game to play center. He will hit 6th, replacing Newfield, who was in left field. That's where Ricky is now playing. Mark Newfield sits down after his base hit, a 1-for-3 night, with a good play in left field. And Jeff Branson, the batter. 2-0. And Bergman loses his concentration a little bit here to the number 8 batter. Hector Carrasco, another right-hander who can throw very hard in the Cincinnati bullpen. The Reds pitcher, Smiley, due to bat 2nd in this 7th inning. So a move is imminent for the Reds, who trail 3-2. And a 4-pitch walk to the leadoff man. Boy, manager can't ask for more than that. First walk by Bergman since the 1st inning when he passed 2. And if you're Ray Knight getting ready to make a move, you get the leadoff walk. Now you leave your starter in there and give him a chance to move that tying run to second base.
Yeah, and he knows how John Smiley can get the bunt down. And this really has been a problem for the Reds the last couple of weeks. The pitchers have not done a good job sacrificing their runners to another base, but he knows John Smiley does a good job of doing it.
Smiley chops it foul. Andy, I got to ask you a question about Ray Knight here. If it's the 8th inning, do you still make this move, or do you have to go with a pinch hitter at that point?
I think you got to go to pinch hitter. I mean, when you get to the 8th inning, obviously John would have probably a lot more pitches. He might be getting up near the 100 pitch count, but I just think, you know, in John's situation here, he's still going to give himself a chance to win the ball game, and I think that's what, you know, Ray has in mind.
1-1 on the fastball away. Smiley with a base hit in 2 trips tonight. A little dribbler 3 innings ago that Caminiti dropped and was ruled a hit.
And it's not that Ray Knight doesn't have confidence in his bullpen, because his bullpen actually has been doing a great job the last 2 weeks.
Smiley, a nice job of catching the ball with the bat there. Right to the pitcher. It'll go 1-4 on the sacrifice. And the tying run, Branson, down to second base with 1 out.
You know, it's the little things in baseball that make you a complete team, and it's the little things that Ray Knight has been talking about his team has not been doing. They've been missing signs, have not been getting down, and you can see how much he appreciates that. And that's really a problem that John had when he first came up to the big leagues. Like a lot of young pitchers, Bob, a lot of young pitchers when they get to the big leagues have never been asked to bunt in a game situation because they have the DH in the minor leagues.
There's a manager in the National League Central who came over from the American League this year and has really emphasized pitchers hitting and bunting, and that's the Cardinals' Tony La Russa. I've had Cardinal players tell me they've been kicked out of the cage because it was the pitcher's turn to hit. And he is,
hit or bunt?
Well, a little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
He has really emphasized that. There's Bryce Flory, one of 5 right-handers the Padres employ in their bullpen. The only lefty they have is hard-throwing Ron Vallone, who came over with Mark Newfield from Seattle last year in the Andy Pettis trade. Top of the order, Thomas Howard, 1 for 2 with a base hit, a steal, a run scored, and a walk. Breaking ball taken out to right center, and this will tie the game. Branson around to score. The walk and the sacrifice paying off for Cincinnati. Thomas Howard has a 2-hit night, his 14th RBI, and a 3-3 game here in the 7th.
Well, even though Bergman's got 3 RBIs under his belt, John Smiley can feel good about this one. He helps himself by moving the runner along, and a base hit gets the runner home, and it's really not that bad of a pitch. It's just the breaking ball that's in the middle part of the plate, and it's a little bit down, but the left-handers, that's really the sweet zone for left-handed hitters, that breaking ball down.
No chance at all for Finley. He was playing toward left center, and Branson knew right off the mark that it would drop. Smiley's back even. Willie Green still only 1 out in the lead run on first base. And Howard stealing a base earlier tonight, his first of the year. Willie Green 1 for 3. Reds are trying to sweep this series and win a ball game on the West Coast for the 7th time in their last 9 games this year. Going back to the '95 season, Cincinnati has felt very comfortable out here. Coming into this game, the Reds have won 10 of their last 15 at San Diego, LA, and San Francisco. They must feel like they're still in the NL West the way they're playing against these guys. And speaking of the NL West, the Padres have only played 5 games in their division this year. Dan Worthen will come out for another visit. The Padres are 3-2 in the West, 2-1 against the Rockies, 1-1 against the Giants. They do not play the Dodgers until the 1st of July.
Well, I'm sure Bruce Bochy's pretty happy about that. Hopefully they can get all the problems out of the way when they do go play the Dodgers, because that's really going to be the decisive factor when it comes down to winning this division. Is you got to beat your own people in your own division. You really got to make sure that you're beating the people that you're going to have to compete against in your division, and hopefully the Padres will have all their problems taken care of by then.
And the Reds, meanwhile, have been one of the streakiest teams of baseball. Pretty even their first 17, then they get bad, then real good, then real bad, and then mediocre lately. They're 4-8 in the Central, 1-2 against the Cubs, 3-4 against Houston, 0-2 against Pittsburgh, and they have not played St. Louis yet. They will not play the Cardinals until July 1 at Busch Stadium. Low and away, 2-0. By the way, the Central would be a lot less crowded had the Cardinals this year not gone 6-0 against the Astros. Houston, a 500 ball club. St. Louis only a game and a half back of them after Houston loses today, but the Cards have swept them twice to keep them and the other teams in the NL Central very close to the Astros. Only 4.5 games separating last place Cincinnati from first place Houston. And from the blimp straight down to the pitching mound with a count of 2-0 on Willie Green. Fastball away, right off the top of the barrel. 2 balls, 1 strike.
And Willie Green's been up 3 times tonight in ideal situations for him. He's had a runner on first. He's had that hole to pick from, and right there, 2-0. He tries to take a fastball that's away from him and tries to pull it, and that's why he hits it off the end of the bat.
Home.
He just needs to look for, he just needs to look for a pitch in the middle part of the plate in so he can drive it in that hole.
Padres looking for the double play ball here. Willie Green, pretty good speed coming out of that batter's box from the left side. Thomas Howard can move it at first. Ray Knight, as we mentioned earlier, a very aggressive manager who loves to move runners. Ray told me once that he has a philosophy about base running, that up until the 7th inning, if he's behind by 6 or less, or ahead by 6 or less, he'll have runners on the move. This obviously a lot closer to that, 3-3 in the 7th inning. And there goes the runner. Pitch up and away, throw is late, and down to second base goes Thomas Howard with his 2nd steal of the night and of the year. That's the lead run in scoring position now with 1 out here in the 7th inning.
Well, you can see here his footwork leads him a little bit out too far outside the batter's box. He needs to catch that ball in the middle part of the plate. You can see how he kind of goes out. I think too big of a stride for a catcher. He needs to shorten up that front foot a little bit so he can release the ball a little bit quicker. And both balls, I think, have been rushed, obviously, because they have been good jumps by Howard, and both of them end up in the dirt.
Brad Osmus known as a better defensive catcher. But interesting enough, Johnson has 4 errors this year. Obviously a very bad percentage. Brad Osmus has made 6 errors behind the plate. He's a much better thrower, but he has put a few into center field as well. 3 balls and a strike, and now stepping off is Bergman.
Well, a lot like Tomlinson of the Reds, who's had his problems throwing out runners too. It all has to do with your footwork. If you got good quick feet and good footwork, you can give yourself a better chance of releasing the ball quicker.
Looked like a changeup or the sinker, and he missed over but low with it. Now runners at first and second. Things get a little hairy here for the right-hander because he's out of this game. Left-hander on deck in Hal Morris. 4th walk of the night. 2 in the 1st, 2 here in the 7th, and that will do it for Sean Bergman. The only offense he's enjoyed tonight off of his bat. 3-3, Flory on the way in here in the 7th. Well, with Andy Van Slyke, Bob Carpenter here in San Diego. Double switch coming up by the Padres here. Interesting night for Sean Bergman with the bat and on the mound.
Yeah, it was interesting. He really gave himself a chance to win tonight, but he didn't complete it by having this inning he had. But they got Flory in the game now, who's had 36 strikeouts in the last 31 innings, so they got the pitcher that they want.
Well, for the most part this year, this San Diego bullpen has been very good. Trevor Hoffman is their closer. They've got plenty of guys who can get it to the 9th inning to put them in a position to win. But right now, they're in danger of losing this tie score. Brad Osmus on the double switch comes in. The pitcher will bat 7th for the Padres, and Osmus will replace Brian Johnson and bat in the number 9 hole, and that's strike 1 to Hal Morris.
Well, it's not too often you bring a right-hander into the game and have the matchup you want, but Flory, who's done an awesome job this year so far, left-handed hitters hitting 159 against him, so he's done a great job against traditionally, which is not the kind of matchup you want, right-hander against left-hander.
Green at first, Thomas Howard 90 feet ahead of him. 1 out and a bouncer will make the count 0-2. So Sean Bergman goes 6 1/3, 6 hits, 4 walks, 5 strikeouts. He gives up a homer, he hits a homer, hits a batter, and with his bat gets 3 RBIs tonight.
Well, he's done it all. He's also gotten doubled off on a line drive, so he's got the complete package tonight.
What else is there?
I don't think there's anything else left to do.
A sacrifice maybe, but he did go to first base on strike 3 on a wild pitch.
Showed his speed, so he's actually shown everything tonight. Beat out of a 3rd strike, so.
Well, we'll see what Eric Davis shows up coming up next. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Hal Morris. Low and away.
Flory, not much of a different type of pitcher than Bergman, except I think Flory has much more sinkage on his fastball than Bergman had tonight. Bergman throws it in the low 90s. Floyd doesn't throw as hard, but has more sink to his fastball.
2-2 to Hal Morris, who's 0 for 3 with a double play and 2 strikeouts, and make it 3 Ks on a very hard-breaking ball up. Andy, earlier you talked about that hard-breaking ball up to a left-hander on the inside part of the plate. This one was out a little further.
Well, it's just like his last strikeout. He got set up for all sinkers away, and this is a breaking ball that's coming in towards his hands. He actually gets away with a pretty bad pitch right there. Morris again moving his feet, getting his feet in position to hit, but the pitch just ties him up. He doesn't get his hands out in front and get the barrel out in front of the plate.
That's a big second out for the Padres. Now they can get out of this inning with a tie score if they can get Eric Davis. There's a breaking ball to the corner for strike 1. Eric is 0 for 1 with a walk and hit by a pitch. Count goes even at 1-1. Eric Davis's next RBI will be his 40th of the season. Pretty good pitch there, but he just missed outside. Eric Davis is Major League best in RBIs, 101 in '89. He had driven in 187. 2-2. Their spring training camp in Plant City looked like a fantasy camp with all the guys they brought back. Little did they know at this time that this man would be leading them in home runs and RBIs in the middle of June. And he's still a relatively young man.
There's another guy right there, Chris Sable.
Yeah.
Second lease on his career.
Eric Davis lines one on a play. Eric, if he's healthy, should have some good years left. He just turned 34 on the 29th of May. '217 career home runs. He'll settle for the base hit right here to make it a 4-3 game. Low and away, ball gets away, and the runners will move up. Breaking ball in the dirt. Brad Osmus kept it close, but not close enough. Now that takes away the force play at any base, and that could be a factor because Eric Davis runs well. And if you can't get him at first, you like to have another base you can go to on a tapper. Now that possibility is erased.
Even though Thomas is the left-handed hitter on deck, you got to count 3-2. It's in your favor. You don't have to throw a strike here, so I'm sure Flyer was not going to get anything too close. If he does, it'll be a mistake.
After the wild pitch, a breaking ball to the right side, scooped up by the dependable Jody Reed, and the Padres are out of the inning. But the leadoff walk pays off in a run. The Reds strand a couple. They've left 7 tonight, and it'll be the bottom of the San Diego order coming up in a 3-3 game.
ESPN's Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by Polaroid. Watch, wait, and see what develops.
Everything's back even here at Jack Murphy Stadium in San Diego. ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball. Earlier tonight, you saw the Mets beat Maddox 3-2 at Shea. Some of you saw Rojas get the W as Montreal took care of Florida 8-0. And here we are with our nightcap. Bob Carpenter and Andy Van Slyke in San Diego. 3-3 now into the bottom of the 7th. Here's an important at-bat. Andahar Cedeno ahead of Brad Osmus and then Ricky Henderson. Remember, Osmus came in the double switch, so he's in the on-deck circle behind Cedeno, who's got a base hit with a run scored. So Bruce Bochy, the old catcher, gets both of his receivers into the ball game tonight. And a fastball way upstairs, 1 ball, 1 strike.
Well, you're able to get away with Osmus being in the game now, because if there was a situation where he gets on base, you don't have to pitch run him. He's got great speed. He had 16 stolen bases last year for San Diego. So you really got a good situation here in San Diego where if Osmus, gets on base, you don't have to pinch run for him.
Fastball up and away. John Smiley has just gone over the 90 pitch mark here as he works in his 7th inning. Still looking strong. He's got some good velocity on that heater. Ray Knight had him sacrificed. It paid off big time in the top of the 7th.
It did pay off big time, Bob, and also he was in the ball game because he did have such a low pitch count.
Not only that, Andy, coming into this inning on his first 89 pitches, better than a 3-to-1 strike to ball ratio. 68 strikes, 21 balls. Has not walked a man tonight. 3 runs on 6 hits. 5 Ks. Number 6 right there. And we'll see Brad Osmus at the plate for the first time tonight. This year has been a scuffle offensively for the Padres catcher. A young man out of Dartmouth. Brian Johnson, of course, a Stanford guy. Osmus, 26 for 135 this year.
Well, if nothing else, they got the smartest tandem in baseball.
They are smart. Into left field, running on to get it, Thomas Howard. For the second out as the ball hung up there. Well, Friday on ESPN2, the quest for Olympic gold gets underway. 18 hours of live Olympic trial coverage. The best track and field America has to offer, competing for a spot on the Olympic team, including Michael Johnson. He's looking to capture medals in both the 200 and 400 meters. Looking forward to summer in Atlanta. It all starts Friday at 4:30 Eastern on the Deuce. 18 hours of Olympic trials. For some of these folks, this is a lot more pressure trying to get to Atlanta. Fastball to Ricky Henderson, strike 1. Ricky is 0 for 3. 2 grounders and a line drive to the shortstop for a double play. Henderson 2 for 4 last night and 0 for 2 the night before, as the Reds have won the previous 2. Ricky's walk streak is at stake. He's walked a league leading 57 times this year.
Oh, he came into the end of the year on 10th on all-time on the list and moved up to 7th, so this is not an unusual position for Ricky to be in.
Passed Jimmy Fox earlier this year on the all-time list for runs with over 1,750, number 15 on the all-time list. John Smiley, only a couple 3-ball counts tonight.
John's fighting through some personal tragedy in his own life, Bob. He lost a pair of twins and had a father-in-law that died, so he's he's really fighting some personal problems right now. The last couple of starts, he's really not affecting him. He's really shown his professionalism on the mound those last couple of starts.
3-1, not even close. And the Padres get the lead run aboard. And Ricky's walking streak is alive at 11. He's at first base. He's a running threat, obviously. 17 steals this year, 5th best in the league. And Hector Carrasco continues to heat up in the Cincinnati bullpen. Ricky Henderson with his 17 this year. 1,166 stolen bases in his career. Jody Reed will hit the ball somewhere in this at bat. He hardly ever strikes out. You know, you made a good point to me on the heels of our little debate a couple of innings ago about number 2 hitters. What has happened in Seattle with Alex Rodriguez since they put him in the 2-hole? Well, he hits it somewhere, and Boone catches the line drive, and I'll let Andy fill you in on that when we come back. When we do, it'll be the 8th inning. It'll still be 3-3. The hits will still be even at 6, and we'll still have a very good ball game going here in San Diego. Ray Knight taking over, of course, for Davey Johnson in Cincinnati, and before that, years ago, Lou Piniella was the manager of the Reds. And Andy, you were talking about a move that Lou made up in Seattle, putting young Alex Rodriguez into that number 2 spot, and he has gone crazy offensively.
Well, he has gone crazy, and like I said, I don't think it's a difficult spot to hit in, Bob. I think the number 2 spot, depending on who your number 3 hitter is a garden spot. And you got Ken Griffey Jr., hitting behind you, and you're Alex, you're just going to get that many more pitches to hit. He wasn't hitting the 8th spot. We all know that the kid's got talent, so he moves him up to the 2nd spot. He explodes, and he's just having an awesome year.
Here's Taubensee. Seattle winning tonight, but Texas won, and the Mariners will stay 5.5 back of the Rangers in the AL West.
Now, what might make it a little bit easier is the fact that Griffey doesn't run as much as Henderson. So, I mean, that's really a great spot for him. He doesn't have to take pitches.
Well, and on top of all that, you're taking a young man of a lot of talent, like Ricky Henderson once was, young that is, and putting him in a situation where he can succeed. His confidence has to be skyrocketing right now. Taubensee with a bouncer out to Jody Reed. 1 out here in the top of the 8th. Cincinnati with only 2 base hits since their 2 in the 3rd. That's the only time tonight they've had more than 1 base hit in any inning. John Smiley's been just as good. He gave up a nightmarish 4 hits, 3 runs in the 3rd, but other than that, he has shut the door on the Padres. Brett Boone 0 for 3, trying to bunt for a hit. I bet his dad taught him that.
Well, he's hit the ball good 3 times tonight. He's shown nothing for it, so he figures I'm going to try something different here, maybe get on. And Kevin Eddy was really playing back. It was a really smart play. He just couldn't get it down.
He really wraps that bat around his neck, right down to the end of the handle.
Yeah, and really, I mean, that was one of the things that he and Lou Piniella, when he was managing for the Reds, they had a disagreement about his style of approach of hitting. And
can't argue with that.
No disagreement there.
Right off the end of the bat. So one of the few times tonight that Boone doesn't hit the ball that hard, and that's when he gets the base hit. He checks in with Jim Lett, the first base coach. Sid Franco will hold it. The umpire is Ron Barnes over there. 1 on, 1 out, and Chad Mottola, the young slugger, with a chance to put his team on top here in the 8th inning. Two pop-ups and a ground ball tonight. Andy, I know you were impressed by the ball he hit here last night, and there's a base hit to left.
Well, not only last night, but around the batting cage today, the ball just jumps off his bat. And last night he hit a ball dead center here, and that's the kind of power that the Reds think he can produce. He can produce the ball at the ballpark in right field, left field, and center. And when you have that kind of power, especially when you show that kind of power in batting practice, you know eventually that hopefully it's going to produce itself in the game. And last night he hit a ball that went very, very, very far, 437 feet in center field. And in the dead air here at San Diego, that's a big home run.
Yeah. Nighttime out here, you earn your home runs. Jeff Branson earned one back in the 2nd, a solo shot. About 380 he hit it to right center or more. Pretty good play there by Brad Osmus on a nasty ball into the dirt. Doug Bachler, he's closed out 3 ball games with saves this year. Getting ready for the Padres. There's another base hit. Boone is around 3rd. They're sending him. Tony Gwynn double clutches and then holds on to the ball. And the Reds put 3 singles together suddenly to take a 1-run lead here in the 8th inning, 4-3. RBI number 16 for Branson, his 2nd of the night.
Well, when you start feeling things going your way, when you put a player and replace him, a guy like Barry Larkin, you know things are starting to turn around. Branson here gets his 2nd RBI tonight. Takes a ball that's really away from him and hooks it into the hole. And Tony Gwynn, even though he double clutches, has no chance at home. You can see Boone's already around on 3rd before he picks up the ball. And Tony wisely, after he realized he doesn't have a shot at home, lines himself up at 3rd base. I asked you last inning if in the 8th inning you bat for the pitcher, and you said yes. I guess I just should have waited for the answer. Here's Lenny Harris. He will bat for Smiley, and John will pitch 7 strong innings, and now he could be the winner. Yeah, and I think that's what was a nice, smart decision by Ray Knight, giving his starting pitcher a chance to win the ball game. You always want to fight for your starting pitching because every manager realizes, you can see Ray's very happy about that decision not to take him out in the 7th. Every manager realizes that he's going to look good based on his starting pitching. Boy, you just look really smart when your starter goes 7 or 8 innings.
Yeah, not to mention when you leave him in and he sacrifices successfully, and then you get the base hit to tie the ball game. Lenny Harris, a very good spare part for the Cincinnati ball club. A .297 batter with a couple of homers, 11 RBIs, and he has been fantastic in one of baseball's most difficult roles, that coming off the bench. Lenny Harris this year, 9 for 20 with a homer, 6 RBIs, pinch hitting. A .450 batting average in that role. Runners at first and second, 1 out. Osmus has to scramble again, ball 1. Matola's at second, Branson at first. Boone has scored. And the Reds have a chance to take a giant step here in the 8th inning towards sweeping this series. The Padres trying to avoid a homestand of 1 win and 8 losses.
You know, it's not very often you look forward to going on the road when you're a major league team, but you know, San Diego Padres, they play this game tonight. They got to get on a charter. They got to go to Chicago. They get in around 6 or 7 in the morning. They got to play a night game, and you can see that the fans haven't given up on San Diego. Not quite yet, but they go to Chicago. They got to play a night game, and consequently, tomorrow's game is a family trip. Of all times to have a family trip, it's not very good timing for the San Diego Padres.
So a few crying babies on that charter flight, you think?
Well, I don't know. They'll be probably sleeping on the plane, but when they get to the hotel 7 o'clock in the morning is when they'll wake up and start crying.
I get you.
And see, those family trips are also planned out way back in the beginning of the season. So you look at your schedule, you try to figure out what's best for the team, best for the family to make that family trip. And I mean, our players miss their families enough. They realize that some organizations like to do it, some don't. It's usually the manager will dictate whether you go on that family trip or not.
2 balls, 2 strikes to Harris. Big breaking ball, ground ball. They're going to have to settle for 1 somewhere. It'll be at first base, and the other runners will move up. Second baseman to the pitcher. Matola to third, and Branson to second. And with 2 outs, it'll be Thomas Howard to the plate. He's had a good night on base 3 times, 2 base hits, 2 steals, a run scored. He's been announced, and now Bruce Bochy will come to the mound and bring in another right-hander. Doug Bockler, the man who's been warming up down there, and he will replace Bryce Flory with 2 on, 2 out here in the 8th inning. The Reds have taken the lead by a 4-3 score. Bockler coming in. Well, John Smiley's left arm gets a little wrap and a little rest here after 7 very strong innings tonight, in a position to win the game. And our Sherwin-Williams pitching summary sees him at 101, 6 strikeouts, only 1 walk, and Sean Bergman, Andy Van Slyke hung in there as well, battled.
Yeah, he did battle, but the big difference was that John kept his team right where he needed to be, even though he had that 1 bad inning, and Bergman was really the only guy that hurt him in the San Diego lineup, and that's really been the case for San Diego. They just can't seem to get anything together as a team, and when your pitcher ends up having all 3 RBIs, you know you're struggling.
Doug Bockler went over a month without giving up any runs, from May 3rd until June 5th, when the Cardinals got a couple off him. This bullpen has been outstanding so far. And he will retire the first man he faces if somebody catches this one. Ricky Henderson is under it. And what more can you ask if you're a reliever? 1 pitch, 1 out, you're out of a jam. 2 runners stranded. But the Reds knock home Boone on 3 base hits and lead for Smiley 4-3 into the bottom of the 8th. This is not slow motion. This is regular speed. Lee Arthur Smith on his way
of all relievers.
On his way to the mound. All-time saves leader with 471. And it was a very interesting way he came to the Reds. Ray Knight called Lee Smith in Anaheim and said, look, here's how I want to use you. I want to have you be a setup man to get us to the 9th inning for our closer, Jeff Brantley, who will be our closer. But if Brantley gets overworked for a couple of days, you will be our man to close ball games. Lee Smith said, Ray, thanks for getting me out of this mess in California.
Right.
I'll do whatever you want me to do.
That's right. And the reason he felt like he wasn't in a mess, Bob, is because it was like Ray Knight was saying, he just didn't feel like he was treated honestly in California. Now, whether that's the case or not, I don't know, but that was Lee's take on the situation, and all Lee ever wanted was to be treated honestly. Didn't need to really be the closer. He just needed to be told the truth, and I think that's what Ray Knight did. He set the air, cleaned the air, had the meeting with Lee Smith and Jeff Brantley when Lee Smith did get over Cincinnati, and they both have, are very, very comfortable with the situation.
Tony Gwynn, Caminiti, Sid Franco for the Padres in the bottom of the 8th. The way their lineup has been hitting, or maybe not hitting lately, this might be their last hope as opposed to the bottom of the 9th based on who's batting in this inning. If anybody gets on, they do have Finley now batting in the number 6 spot. Tony Gwynn is 0 for 3. And Tony's, there's Joe Oliver, who comes in for some defense here. We'll check on the double switch if that's what has happened here for the Reds.
And Lee Smith, a much different pitcher now than he was 5-6 years ago. He doesn't throw as hard as he did. He's more of a control pitcher and he's picked up a split finger pitch. And there, right there, is a lot of respect for Tony Gwynn and his eye at the plate. Pretty good pitch on the outside corner and didn't get the call. But Lee is a different type of pitcher than he was 5 or 6 years ago. He doesn't throw as hard. He's got really 2 breaking balls now and a split finger. So he's learned to craft and not being just a thrower.
Fastball away, and Tony Gwynn lined it foul. Tony's next base hit will tie Joe Medwick for 73rd on the all-time hit list at 2,471. He's homered twice in the last week. Wednesday night to beat the Cardinals, and then a solo shot last night as the Reds beat the Padres 4-1. That was San Diego's only run, obviously. Right down the middle, Lee throws it. Off to the left it goes. Lee Smith's problems in California came to a head on the night of May 13th in a game shown here on ESPN. With the Angels leading by 1 into the 9th inning, Lee Smith, not Percival, was called on in the 9th inning after Percival had pitched the 8th. Rene Latchman called on, Marcel Latchman, excuse me, called on Lee Smith. Did Tony go around? Yes, he did, says Jerry Crawford at third base. 1 out here in the 8th. And Andy, in that ball game, Lee Smith gave up the tying run in the 9th inning, blew the save. The Royals eventually beat the Angels 3-1 in 14 innings. And that's when the Lee Smith, Marcel Latchman, Troy Percival situation really started to come apart in Anaheim.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's not the first time Lee Smith has blown a save, but he was really under a pressure situation for the first time in California, and Percival was doing such an excellent job. So, that's big news, but bigger news is the fact that Lee Smith struck out Tony Gwynn. We just saw something that just doesn't happen very often.
Tony Gwynn just struck out for only the 9th time this year in 207 at-bats. Brett Boone has this one, and Caminiti is gone for the 2nd out. People look at the box score tomorrow morning and see a strikeout, and they think it's a misprint.
And it was on that split finger, that pitch that he's picked up the last couple of years, and it's a pitch he really has needed because instead of throwing 89 like he did on the fastball previous to the split finger, those numbers used to be turned around. They used to say 98, but now he needs that split finger.
Marquis Franco. A big guy with home run potential, batting with the bases empty here in the 8th inning in a 1-run game.
And if you're wondering why, Ken Caminiti swung at that first pitch in the 8th inning down by a run, it's not unusual for Caminiti to do that now. You're looking at a guy who last year hit 441 on the first pitch when he put it in the play, and it's a very comfortable position to be in. So you can't really ask him to take a first pitch fastball right down the middle, even though you're down by a run in the 8th inning.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, Andy. If you see the fastball, if you get behind the count, that'll be the last fastball you see.
It might be, and the thing is, he threw it in a good location to be hit. He just hit it hard at the second baseman. So, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of fans sitting at home wondering why he swung at it, but you can't take away what you naturally like doing, and that's King Caminiti. He likes swinging at the first pitch.
Yeah, you don't become passive in the 8th inning. 1 ball, 1 strike to Sid Franco, 1 for 3 with a double. In the middle of the plate, but he gets the fly ball, and as we mentioned earlier, this is a ballpark where fly balls do not carry that well at night. Eric Davis has it. Lee Smith sets it up for Brantley, and into the 9th inning, the Reds lead it by a score of 4-3. Lee will hit the dugout about the time we come back for the 9th inning. Well, there's some Cincinnati red here at Jack Murphy Stadium tonight. Top of the 9th inning.
Number 12, Willie Green.
Well, they've had a lot of discussions lately about their role. Ray Knight batted against Lee Smith when Ray was with the Mets and Lee was with the Cubs back in the mid-'80s. Jeff Brantley has saved ball games the last couple of nights. Willie Green, Hal Morris, and Eric Davis. Fastball misses outside. 1 ball, 1 strike.
And with Jeff Brantley not warming up in the bullpen, Bob, I think we're going to see Lee Smith try to close out this game for Cincinnati.
Left-hander Finley, then right-handers. Well, the pitcher spot, then right-hander Cedeno in the 9th for San Diego. Left-hander Mike Remlinger is warming up, the only southpaw in the Cincinnati bullpen. Brantley has saved ball games each of the last 2 nights. Well hit by Green. Deep right field. And the Reds get another run for a 2-run cushion here in the 9th inning. Willie Green's 5th of the year. RBI number 20. It's 5-3 Cincinnati.
Now I think we definitely will see Lee Smith coming into the 9th and try to close out this game. Well, Willie Green has hit all 4 of his balls to the right side. He's got a base hit in the 1st and now a home run here in the 9th. So he shows the kind of potential he once was promised back in when he got drafted by Pirates #1. And Cincinnati really likes this kid. He does have good power, does play pretty good defense, and getting a chance to play tonight.
Hal Morris 0 for 2 with 3 strikeouts. Now he's thinking about bunting for a base hit. Caminiti playing back. Now the Reds have hit a couple of homers tonight. Branson a solo shot in the 2nd. Willie Green a leadoff shot here in the 9th. And again, the only San Diego runs tonight driven in by the pitcher, Sean Bergman, with a 3rd inning 3-run homer. Other than that, Bruce Bochy's Padres have been quiet. Their starters tonight came into this game career 198 against John Smiley. And they finished the same way with only 5 base hits off Smiley. They'll make it 6 in 7 innings of work. 0-2 now still to Hal Morris. Eric Davis to follow. As the Reds try to close out a 4-2 visit to the coast. Cincinnati will have the day off tomorrow, and they will host the Expos for the weekend, while the Padres make that trip that Andy alluded to when they fly all night to Chicago and play the Cubs tomorrow night. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Morris.
You know, Bob, and I don't think fans can really appreciate just how tough that really is. When you change time zones and you play the night game, and it's very, very difficult to sleep on the plane. They're going to have kids on that plane tonight. It's just going to be a very difficult game for them tomorrow night in Chicago. It's a lot easier coming from the east to the west than it is going from the west to the east. And San Diego's really got maybe the most important road trip they've got coming this year. All year.
Well, they've got 4 pretty good pitchers in Chicago lined up, Andy. Tomorrow night, Joey Hamilton against Amari Telemaco. Tewksbury and Traxel Friday. Ashby and Navarro Saturday. Cubbies are not decided yet who they will throw on Sunday against Fernando Valenzuela. Pretty good at bat there by Hal Morris. who is behind 0-2 and then works for the walk. Well, the U.S. Open on ESPN gets started tomorrow, 11 a.m. from soggy Oakland Hills. Corey Pavin defends the title after a 2-stroke victory last year over Greg Norman. And SportsCenter will be at the Open as well. Tomorrow night at 12:30 a.m. Eastern, 9:30 Pacific. First round highlights and analysis. Chris Berman and the whole bunch stationed in Michigan to bring you all the latest from the U.S. National Championship of Golf on ESPN. Corey Pavin, not that long of a hitter. With the rough that I saw on our preview special today, the boys better be hitting the ball in the fairway.
They need the short grass.
That's right.
That short grass is premium come this weekend.
Not to mention all the wet conditions. Eric Davis, fastball away, high drive, right center, and this ball will also leave the park. Davis with his 13th of the year. Bachler getting rocked in the 9th here, and the Reds open up a 4-run lead. Eric Davis's RBI total jumps up to 41.
Well, I talked earlier about seeing Franco and how he doesn't use his leg to drive the ball. Now watch Eric Davis come off his backside to a stiff front side. See that front leg, that left leg collapse and be straight? That is what's going to produce the backside power to the front side, and that's really weight transfer in a swing, and that's why he drove the ball the opposite way out of the park.
Here's Joe Oliver, who took over for Taubensee last inning. Cincinnati turning this one into a laugher now. The Reds a 7-3 lead. So on the day that Marge Schott takes herself out of the day-to-day operation of this ball club through the 1998 season, the Reds look like a very good ball club just hours later. And a base hit by Oliver. 4 consecutive men reaching against Doug Bachler. And Worthen to the mound again. Brett Boone due up. Padres month by month. June has been a nightmare. The starter's ERA is up almost 2 runs a game. And the relief ERA, the guys in the pen, well, basically more than tripling their earned run average. Willie Blair is the right-hander throwing now.
This is a high-risk swing right here. There's a lot that can happen poorly, but right here you see he gets his hands back up in time to hit this fastball away. And again, it's going off from the backside to the front side. It allows him to drive the ball to the ballpark. Seeing Franco now tonight has flied out to center field twice on similar pitches, but he's not using his lower body to get through the swing. And that, therefore, you can't really drive the ball into the outfield. Hopefully not at the outfielders, but over the outfielders.
Well, I remember Eric Davis when he was in his prime, latter part of the decade of the 80s. Everybody talked about his bat speed. There's a man who turned 34 at the end of May, and the bat speed looked back on that swing.
It really does. And when you have that big hitch and you're not hitting, people say, well, you need to get rid of that hitch. When you're hitting well like Eric Davis is right now, they call it a timing mechanism.
Yeah. Don't change a thing.
Right.
Don't change a thing.
But when you're in a slump, boy, we need to do something about that.
Brett Boone with a base hit in 4 trips. He got their rally started last inning. Looks bad there on a breaking ball. And the count's even 2-2. With 1 out in the 8th, Boone got a ball right off the end of his bat. Lofted it into left center for a base hit. Matola singled. Branson RBI singled. And the Reds had the lead back.
You know, I had an interesting conversation in the clubhouse with him. He said he never really appreciated what his dad and his grandfather did as major league players. It's when he got to the big leagues and finally realized just how much a professional his dad really was that he came to appreciate how his dad handled himself on and off the field. And I think he's really going to become a much better big league player based on those lessons he had early.
There goes another one to left center. 3 home runs in the inning by Cincinnati. 9-3 Reds. Boone's 3rd of the year. RBI 16 and 17, and it's a big-time blowout in San Diego now. For his own protection, Duck Bockler will now be lifted from this game. Solo by Green, Davis a 2-run shot, and now Boone for a couple. It's a 5-run inning, 9-3 Cincinnati. And the Padres are going to suffer through a 1-8 homestand. Nine to 3 Cincinnati now. They won 6-3 Monday, 4-1 last night. They got their biggest margin of lead in this series after 3 homers here in the 9th inning. Keith Olbermann, Rich Eisen standing by. SportsCenter coming up next. A look back at the Sonics staying alive in Game 4. More on Marge, the Cincinnati Reds situation, and a preview. Tee-off time, 11 a.m. for us tomorrow, Eastern Time. The U.S. Open Golf Championship. Still nobody out in this 9th inning. Chad Mottola, the batter, and the pitcher for San Diego against Mottola, who is 1 for 4 tonight, is the 30-year-old right-hander Willie Blair, who's been around both leagues. Willie up with Toronto in 90, Cleveland in 91, the Astros in 92, the Rockies 93-94, a Padre for the 2nd year. Two balls and a strike. And Mottola hanging in there at 292. 12 hits in 35 at-bats since his recall from AAA.
You know, these are the at-bats, Bob, when you really got to be hungry and not give at-bats away. You know, your team just hit 3 home runs in 1 inning, and you have a tendency to go up there and relax a little bit, lose your concentration, but you know, as a young player, you've got to learn never to give an at-bat away. Keep battling and make sure that every at-bat counts.
Well, there's a man who persevered tonight. Mottola gone on the called strike. Brett Boone hit into hard luck his first couple of times tonight. Then he gets 2 at-bats late with a single and a home run. And the blockbuster video blimp, based in Orlando, Florida, giving you these beautiful shots of San Diego tonight. They'll be showing up at some future ESPN events. And our thanks to Captain Steve Kalinsky out of Naperville, Illinois, for shooting some beautiful Southern California nighttime shots here around Jack Murphy Stadium. Branson, the batter, 2 for 3 with a homer, a single, 2 runs batted in. And the San Diego bullpen suddenly very hittable after 2 very good months. A footnote on Doug Bockler's appearance now. 9 earned runs he's given up in his last 2 innings of work. And of course, Trevor Hoffman nowhere to be seen in this series. He did pitch an inning on Monday night in a hold'em situation, but has not had a chance to close a ball game at all. Even when they came from behind in dramatic fashion last week to beat St. Louis, Hoffman got the win in that game after coming on in the 9th inning in relief with his team behind. So no saves out there lately. Branson to Finley for the 2nd out. Well, here we go back to the top of the 9th inning. Willie Green leads off. There it goes. After a walk, Eric Davis. There it goes. After a base hit, Brett Boone. There she blows, and 5 runs in the inning.
Those were night shots right there, along with the blockbuster blimp. I mean, those were shots into the night.
Here's one of those young Reds contributing to this ball club lately. A transplanted second baseman who was forced to play left field after Vince Coleman failed out there for the Reds, Eric Owens.
And this is the guy that Ray Knight really likes, Bob. He talks about him in the same mode as the Pete Rose. Obviously, you know, he's got some talent, but I think Ray likes him because he says he knows how to play the game. And Ray's always a guy who's taken pride when he was a player, and a guy who knew how to play the game, do the little things, score a guy from third base when less than one out, and just Right there, hits the ball all over the ballpark, too.
Right on the chalk. Tony Gwynn picks it up, plays it beautifully down in that sort of bizarre corner, and holds him to a single with 2 down.
He was voted the most exciting player at the AAA level last year at the American Association. Not the most valuable player, but the most exciting. Right there, does a nice job inside, out hitting the ball. Wasn't sure, you can see him hesitate right there. Wasn't sure whether the ball was fair or not, but really had no chance of getting a double on that play.
Now, what are some of the things you have to do to be chosen the most exciting player in the league?
I don't know. I have no idea. Do backflips? I mean, I didn't even know that was a part of the voting system. But I guess in AAA, you gotta do anything to try to keep up the big leagues, and maybe that's just one of the things that AAA managers do on their own.
The MEP, if you will. High fastball jams Thomas Howard, who pops it up. Caminiti looks playable for him, and the Reds are gone in the 9th inning, but not before they get 5 runs on 5 hits, including 3 long ones, the most recent by Brett Boone, and it's by 6 the Reds lead into the bottom of the 9th. Bottom of the 9th inning. Cincinnati leads it by a score of 9-3. And an interesting scenario here. Lee Smith could have earned a save by staying in this game, but it's no longer a save situation now, as Hector Carrasco will come in and pitch with a 6-run lead. Thomas Howard shuffles over and plays center field for the Reds, and Eric Owens takes over out in left field after pinch hitting.
And those are the kind of cards you want to see if they're in your favor, Bob, right there. A lot of changes. When you score a lot of runs, you get a chance to put a lot of your players in that you normally don't do when you're not playing well. So that's a card that Ray Knight likes to look at right there.
Sports Center coming up next. A look back at the NBA action of tonight. The Bulls and the Sonics, with Seattle finally grabbing a W. More on the Marge Schott situation today. Relinquishing control of the ball club through the 1998 season. Keith Olbermann and Rich Eisen will also preview the U.S. Open, as we have a battery of talent out there at Oakland Hills to tell you about it. It's all coming up tomorrow. Sports Center is next. Here's Steve Finley's first at bat of the night. Came into the ball game in the 7th inning to play center field. And Finley is still the Padres' home run leader with those 9. Caminiti has 8. Coming into tonight's action, only the Kansas City Royals had hit fewer homers than the Padres, 43. The Royals had hit 42 prior to their home game with the Angels. Two balls and 2 strikes to Finley. And Carrasco throws very hard, but he can be very wild.
He's an inconsistent relief pitcher, and as his ERA showed that. And Cincinnati really wanted this guy to be a closer type of pitcher, but does not have the kind of command that you need to be a kind of closer in the big leagues.
That's one of the reasons the Reds picked up Lee Smith. Tough play for Green. And safe at first base is Finley, who runs well. Now here's a classic situation where a scorer has a choice to make. Was it a makeable play? At the hot corner, the ball was hit very hard, and Willie Green will be given an error.
And now this is, again, I don't know about this call, Bob. It just takes a wicked hop, and this is what I'm talking about, getting official scores down in the field. This ball hops straight up on him. And I mean, obviously, I think it's a play that needs to be made, but at the same time, it does take an extra high hop, and I guess the official score felt like the ball played him instead of him playing the ball, and I guess I could see his point on that play.
Here's Chris Gwynn, Tony's brother, to pinch hit with the man aboard in the bottom of the 9th inning. Chris is 3 for 20 as a pinch hitter this year. The only game the Padres won on this homestand 1 week ago tonight And they got 4 in the 9th against the Cardinals. Well, you take that inning away, they'd be looking at an 0-9 homestand and a 10-game losing streak. Don Gullet is pacing. He wants Carrasco to start throwing some strikes.
And I'm sure they're going to get somebody up in the bullpen before this thing gets out of hand.
He had to walk out toward the outfield end of the dugout so that his bullpen could see him. And that's Johnny Ruffin who will get back up as Carrasco's all over the place. Andy, you mentioned this earlier in the top of the 9th about a hitter in a blowout game not coming up and giving an at-bat away. In this situation is Hector Carrasco, and he's got to kick himself in the rear and say, hey, I got to pretend like this is a close ball game.
Yeah, you really do. I mean, the situation shouldn't dictate how your concentration level is, but, you know, we're talking about human beings, and situations often do dictate what your concentration level is going to be, and I'm sure that's what the reminder will go out there and listen. All you really need to do is throw the ball down the middle of the plate, and the odds are in your favor. They're going to hit it to somebody. So pretend there's a telephone pole right there in the middle of the home plate and try to hit it.
2 on, nobody out. Andujar Cedeno, the batter. He's 1 for 3. With a base hit, a run scored, and 2 swinging strikeouts. 2 of John Smiley's 6, and there's a strike at the knees. Cincinnati still with a sizable cushion here in the 9th because of those 3 home runs in the top of the inning. Smiley would stand as the winner and even his record at 6-6. Bryce Flory, who gave up the run in the 7th, would be the loser. He would be 1-2. And Ray Knight's club would come back home only 4 behind Houston. Ground ball deep short, booted by Branson. Everybody is safe, and the bases are loaded. It might be a good thing they got those home runs now. How will they score this one? That should have been at least a force play at second base.
You can see
now that's an error.
That's definitely an error. And he plays the ball outside of his feet and doesn't get in front of it. He either got to backhand that ball, get all the way in front of it, and he actually does a nice thing. He picks up the ball and just and eats it. He doesn't try to throw the ball to second base and end up throwing the ball away. So he realizes he made the mistake and he eats it, and he still realizes he got a 6-run lead.
Ball 1 low and away to Brad Osmus. 3rd error of the night by the Reds, their 51st of the year. As long as you hit more home runs than make errors, you're all right. 4 homers, 3 errors. 1 ball, 1 strike to Osmus, who flied to left in the 7th after coming in the previous half inning to catch. High fastball. He was late for it. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Don't forget SportsCenter coming up next on ESPN as soon as we wrap up our doubleheader. Earlier tonight in the rain at Shea, the Mets knocked off the Braves. Some of you saw Montreal shut out the Marlins. And all of you have seen this one where the Reds are trying to send the Padres to a 1-8 homestand, barring a miracle rally here. This could be a couple. Branson to Boone, 6-4-3 for the double play. A run scores. It's now 9-4.
You know, when the team's struggling, this is the type of rallies you have, though, Bob. You're down, you know, 9-3, and it's the 9th inning. You know you're out of the game, and as soon as you feel like you got something going, you got in a couple of breaks, you hit into the double play, and this has really been the formula that's been prevalent for San Diego the last 2 weeks. You just never seem to get that big hit. Like I said at the beginning, that San Diego has left the most men on base in the National League, and an indication tonight that they just do not seem to get those back-to-back hits when they need them.
13 stranded last night. Up until a week and a half ago, Houston led the league in that category. But the Padres on this homestand, lots of frustration. 2 balls and no strikes to Henderson. Ricky 0 for 3 with a walk tonight. His 58th walk of the year, and the 11th consecutive game in which he's walked. And you can just tell by looking at Steve Finley and his teammates what the mental state of this ball club is right now. They just cannot get it going. 3-0.
Their body language says a lot about professional sports. The body language right now for San Diego is not very good.
Runners at first and third now. As Carrasco walks his second man. The double play ball might be the only reason he's still in this game. And Jody Reed is next. The Padres, down by 5, need 2 more base runners if they have any hopes of getting the tying run to the plate. Jody Reed 1 for 4 tonight.
You know, when they get on that plane tonight, Bob, they're going to have to focus on something. And you try to focus on positive things. And, you know, they've had probably the worst homestand they might have had in the last decade here at San Diego. And in spite of the fact that they had the worst homestand in the last decade, you've got to realize we're still in first place.
Yep.
We still are the best team in the National League West, and that is a very important thing to keep on focusing on. That's going to be Bruce Bochy's job as the manager of this club.
And 2 of their divisional rivals are playing good teams this week. The Dodgers at Atlanta and San Francisco hosting Houston. That'll do it. And the Padres finish the homestand with a record of 1-8. And now they're only 2 games up on the Dodgers in the National League West.
And that's what he's contemplating right now. What is he going to say to his team? He's going to try to make sure he stays on the positive, but he's really got a good, he's going to have to manage for the first time this year.
That's Andy Van Slyke. I'm Bob Carpenter. SportsCenter coming up next on ESPN as the Reds come up with good pitching early, great hitting late, sweep the series, and win it 9-4. Good night from San Diego.